Hey, Markus.
Hey, how you
Hey,
doing?
fine, thank you. We finally found the time to meet each other
Yes.
after all these delays.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. First of all, sorry about that, and I appreciate the understanding. It's
no problem.
as you know, did you say you have two kids?
Yeah, I have two kids. Yeah, so I understand everything. It's
Yeah.
all
I
good.
can
It's
I can only imagine.
well, it's double the work if you have one kid. So just multiply it by two, and it's that easy.
Yeah, simple math.
Simple
Yeah,
math. I agree.
even today just getting here and getting the kid with their grandparents quite the hassle to
Yeah.
to make happen, but
So your studio is not connected to your home; it's somewhere else, I assume.
No, but it's luckily pretty very close to my parents,
Uh-huh.
so I can basically just plonk him down there, and they look after him. So that's at least a very big positive.
Yeah, I agree. Mine is like 10 minutes drive from my home, so it's
Yeah,
really no problem. And my kids are going to elementary school, so they can handle themselves, when they
yeah,
come home from school. So yeah, when they grow up, it gets a bit easier. But as they say, little kids, little problems. Big kids, big problems.
yeah. When things do go sideways, they go sideways a lot
Yeah,
harder
yes, that's true.
to
Yeah.
compared to a toddler, because he's going to be 2 in August. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, but I've definitely noticed that it's getting easier overall. Like you have to watch him less. He's more independent.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's at least an encouraging thing to notice that you
Well, the,
don't have
the
to be.
biggest turn was when they stopped wearing diapers. It was oh, that was the biggest relief for me. So,
For me, it's
yeah.
the sleep stuff.
Mm.
Anytime I lose any sleep, I'm a mess. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
if sleep is okay, then I'm fine with it, anything pretty much. But
I have this watch, which monitors my sleep, and then I sleep well. I wake up, and the watch says you slept badly. Oh damn! It just ruins my day. So I
yeah,
started ignoring it. Yeah.
that's what a lot of people say is like, if you know you had a kind of a rough night, don't look at the score at all. But in your
Yeah.
case, I guess if you have had a good night, don't look at the score
Yeah,
either.
yeah, that goes both ways. I agree. So,
Yeah, it's
but it's
definitely.
still useful, to follow your sleep patterns and to see. Most of the time, it's correct. It's just giving me really informative data. So I know
Yeah,
on the days when I do some training and weightlifting, I sleep better. And this is finally confirmed through the watch device.
yeah,
So yeah, it's useful more than
yeah.
it's
I
not.
think that's the main thing to take away from it. You want to see that you get the right ratios of REM sleep and deep sleep, and yeah, exactly. When you make some kind of a change in your life, then
Mhm.
you can notice how things shift. It doesn't matter. Like, these aren't. I also have a watch for that, mainly for sleep and also training. But it's it's not that they're supposed to be super accurate independently as a device, but it's rather that
Mm.
you can follow those changes because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
can
yeah.
track something changing. So that's a super useful
Yeah, I have a smart
element.
scale, for measuring my body weight, and it also gives kind of data, which is I'm not sure it's entirely correct, but these things that you see the changes, I believe these are actually correct. So you can see when
Yeah,
something is improving or going down. So yeah, that's where it's useful. I
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah. And they
So
are
what's
they're
this
pretty.
behind you? Is that guitar? Sorry, I'm looking at this. I'm
No,
so
yeah,
envious
that's
of
fine.
this.
I'll get it over here. That's my only. I basically don't have
You don't have
much.
a MIDI keyboard or?
No, I do. It's that's in front of me here, but I don't like everything I have is on the desk. Like everything is embedded in the desk, so I don't have any hardware beyond what's on my working desk, except for this one. So this is
Except for this KX5. This is from the 80s or what?
yeah, this is as old as I am, pretty much. Like
Oh my God. It has the same font as DX7. You know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
same.
I think it's the same kind of same general lineup.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, yeah.
Does it contain sounds or is it just MIDI?
No, just MIDI. But it's like this is like proper metal. It's built like I can't say like a tank, but it's built really well. And the key action is like some of the best I've ever touched. Like you can see these are very kind of short and stumpy.
Yeah, they're very short.
But they are surprisingly wide.
I
So
see.
you get like a very sharp action because it's wider and shorter. So
I'm going to reverb at this moment, you know. Checking for the KX5.
Yeah, it's a really cool piece of kit. And also I love the pitch bend control, which is like a ribbon control here.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of my only piece of gear that I have like a emotional connection to, I'd say.
So you don't play guitars or?
No. So I'm probably I'm best sort of technical in drums. That's where I've had most of my training. And then it would be, I don't know. I also sing and I play the keyboard, but hard to say. I don't know. I'm not great at either. But what I do most is play the keyboard, the piano, or keyboard.
I mean, yeah, if you're doing some composing, you know, keyboard is a necessity. It's something you really need. Imagine inputting all these notes with a mouse. It's gonna take ages.
Yeah, or like typing keyboard. If you get like really good at the commands, I've seen some people do it pretty fast, but for me, I also want to perform the music, so I want to play it into the DAW.
Yeah, I agree with you. This gives this much needed human factor, you know, compared to everything being quantized on the grid, which is something I started avoiding 10 years ago with Talos. You know, something when I worked on the first soundtrack, a lot of songs I just disabled the metronome. Not just so I just played the melodies, and when I overdubbed any additional instruments, I just tried to keep in tempo. And that's how most of the Talos one was actually conceived. So sometimes turning off the metronome really takes you out of that. This is job, you know, I need to input this many notes in this many beats, and gets you into the other state of mind where you just go with the flow and experiment and actually play, which is something I think all composers need to do from time to time. Just play, have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the tempo thing is also something that I've been working a lot with for the past maybe year, maybe a bit more, in terms of really fine-tuning the tempo for each section. So let's say if I'm doing a track in 124 BPM, I might be going faster and slower depending on the section of the song, if it obviously benefits from that. And that's something that I'm doing to sort of model the natural flow of music. You know, obviously if you have a bunch of people playing together, it's never going to be exactly, you know, quantized. It's always flowing a bit, and it's very easy in a DAW environment to get very locked in on the tempo and, you know, do it from start to finish in a very gridlocked fashion. But this is something that I've really found to be quite useful, and you can quite easily also hear whether it's getting too fast or slow, but it does, you know, bring a bit more of that organic quality.
I assume you're not doing something radical here. It's probably 2 BPM up, down, just to make it. That's what I do as well. It's this little shift, you know, maybe you don't even notice it at first, but your brain is very good at catching patterns. So if you break the pattern, it's always going to sound fresh to you. So yeah, this is a nifty trick to break the pattern that's happening in the song. I don't know if you do this like me, but I also love to record every chorus and verse if I'm doing a commercial song. I like to record them separately, not copy paste them, because the brain will recognize it. But if you sing it, play it, and try to nail it as close as the first one, it will still have this slight difference that will make it stand apart from the previous one. So I do this as well when I'm composing, when I'm doing orchestral stuff for serious Sam games. I just record the second chorus just like I did the first one. Try not to quantize too much. I do fix things that go way off the grid, just move them slightly closer. But it gives me this flow without recognizable patterns, which I think it's always nice, when you listen to something like that.
No, for sure. And even if you play the more or less the exact same thing, that it's a second chorus, that it's a second verse. So you will bring a different feel to it. And of course, you're probably going to have minor arrangement changes, but I mean, in some cases, you could have the exact copy of the previous one. But
I don't do this. I always add something, to differentiate it from the previous ones, even if it's just small sound effects happening. So small swells, risers, blips, blops, which can be layered pretty low in volume, but still you notice something has changed. And that's very important for me, even when designing sound effects. And I do a lot of sound design. Beside music, when I do variations, I always do variations. So we have this opportunity now to use the random containers, where you just toss in a bunch of same sounds, which are still not same, they're just variations, and then the engine does the trick of mixing them, and it really helps avoid that machine gun effect when you only had one sound repeating all the time, which is again a pattern which brain recognizes quite quickly. So anything that can help to avoid this patternization of music and sound design, I strongly encourage people to do it.
Yeah. Like especially in today's environment, when you can copy paste, when you can so easily just move things around, it's even more important than ever before. I remember reading on your website that you describe yourself like primarily in terms of instruments, that you're a bass player, or is that something you started with? Because I see guitars on the walls, and obviously you have your MIDI keyboard.
The bass is actually on the other wall. But I started with guitar. So back in, I think it was 1991. When was that? Dude, 33 years ago. Oh, damn.
I was 2 years old back then.
I was starting the high school. So there was this guy from my class. We all meet each other. It was the first year of high school. And he was enrolled into music school. He finished the elementary music school and he was going to the secondary music school, which was parallel to our high school. And 2 days per week, he was carrying a guitar in a case. And I used to play keyboards since 1986. I started learning keyboards, piano, but it was mostly on my own. I had 1 year of tutoring by a music teacher, and never managed to read notes properly. I can identify them, but it was just I improvised a lot. And not until 91 I didn't pick up the guitar, but then I heard this guy play, and he was amazing. Because after 6 years of classical training, you really get good on guitar. And he also loved rock. So he started teaching me some of the stuff, and I started learning at home. And it was the time when there was a war in Croatia. The Croatia separated from former Yugoslavia, and there was a big war happening here, invaded by remnants of Yugoslavia. So we were mostly during the day, we weren't in school, we were in shelters, because it was all the time, it was air raid alerts, stuff like that happening. And we were kids, when you're a kid, you kind of forget about these things. You don't carry it forward, you just remember good times. And it was all of us kids hanging in these shelters, and everyone brought instruments they had at home. And some of them had guitars, acoustic guitars, classic guitars, nylon ones. And so we all started learning how to play. I brought my little synthesizer, Yamaha also. So we made a band in that shelter, and we were lousy. We didn't know how to play. Still, it was something that connected all of us, and it was fun. And me being a rock metalhead, I wanted to learn proper chords and riffs and solos. So I started practicing more and more and more. And I started getting to the point when I was actually good on guitar, but everyone was playing a guitar by that time. And so the only, if I wanted to join a band, and the only string instrument available was bass. So I said, okay, I will play bass. I always wanted to be lead guitar, play solos, punch some riffs. But no, they were missing a bass guitarist. So I picked up a bass. And then something clicked. The bass is like this fundamental instrument which pumps a lot of energy. And if you listen to the band, if you stop playing bass, everything falls apart. Unless it's Justice for All album, which has no bass. But
the only exception.
Yeah, the only exception. They just turned off the bass. But being this part of the fundamental rhythm section, giving the groove to the band was something that I really liked. So I sticked with the bass guitar, keep playing bass in various bands, but I still practice electric guitar at home every day. So I don't know. I could easily play either guitar or bass in a band. At this moment, after 33 years of playing both instruments, I can play some advanced stuff, nothing too advanced. But as you said, I also would like to get better. And I try to keep my practice routine, at least half an hour every day, just go through some scales and keep my fingers exercised. But to devote more time at this age with 2 kids and a job and everything, it's kind of impossible. So I just have to accept that I'm never going to play Marty Friedman solos. It's gonna be kind of impossible. I can play them on 75% of speed. But to get to the full 100s, I don't know. I would have to play and practice 3, 4, 5 hours a day, which is just a luxury at this time of my life.
That's why we have the DAW. Just add the missing 25%.
Yeah, actually, I do this. When I want to play my own solos, and I create a solo which I know how I should play it, but my fingers don't listen to me or they're too slow. Then I just record it a bit slower and speed it up, and you can't actually notice when it's buried in the mix, when you add some effects, and if you record it as clean and precise with lower speed, when you speed it up a bit, it's going to sound okay. So, this is the DAW trick that I encourage people to use. If you can't play something to the full speed, just slow it down, play it as precisely as you can, then speed it up. No one is going to ask you later, how did you record it, if it sounds good.
Yeah. And also, at the end of the day, what matters the most, at least to someone like myself, is that the music is great and the music sounds great. It tends to be musicians who care about how you got there. But is that like for you? It sounds like still being an instrumentalist and being good at that is still important for you, because most of the composers that I know are sort of more focused on just delivering the final end product, and they don't really many of them don't have this kind of a big keen instrumentalist aspect involved in it. They build their stuff in the DAW. Is that something that, well, it sounds like it's important to you, but how does that manifest in your work today, and do you sort of try and keep that at the forefront?
Well, the thing is, my vision where my life is gonna go when I was in high school, when I was teenager, in my 15, I'm gonna be a rock star. So
of course,
this is my aim, and I'm gonna play on big stage with Slash, on Wembley, stuff like that. That you dream of when you're a 14, 15-year-old kid. So playing has always been the most important thing for me. And I really enjoy playing guitar, bass. This is something I really love. I love to sit down on piano, play some Aerosmith, then take bass, do some Jamiroquai stuff, then pick up the guitar, hit some Rammstein riffs. It's very important for me to play because I enjoy it. This is even when I'm practicing, I do this chord exercises, scales, finger stretching, but then I try and to do some solo covers from Randy Rhoads, I tried Marty Friedman, I can do Kirk Hammett. So I try to learn different solos, different riffs, and during that process, I also analyze it. I'm looking at what these guitarists are using. Are these pentatonic scales? Are these some different scales which I haven't heard of? How are they implementing stuff? And it's very, very useful. Besides learning how to play, you are learning something new that will help you later when you are composing. So yeah, that's always been an important part, because I didn't wake up one day and say I want to be a video game composer. It's happened as a lucky accident, because I was trying to learn how to record things on my computer. And back in the 90s, you had to either buy a Tascam Porta Studio, which used cassettes, and the recording quality was not that good. Or you could rent a professional studio, which was expensive, especially for us teenagers and kids. Or you can try something new and try to learn how to record using a computer, which luckily I had, thanks to my parents, and I had a pretty strong Pentium back in the 90s. And it was just a matter of figuring out how to input all these instruments, synths, and guitars I had at home and record them onto hard disks. So I went into the rabbit hole of searching, and the internet was very basic these days. I think I used Alta Vista searcher. I don't think no one remembers that.
I do.
You do?
Know. Yes.
It's before Yahoo and Google, so I used Alta Vista. We browsed the web, and there were cards made by, I think, Ensoniq was one of the first manufacturer of professional audio cards that could be put into PC and deliver some decent recordings. So in the end, I finally learned how to use my computer. That was 1998, I think, to record my own stuff and to do multi-track recording, which was amazing at that time. You can have 8 tracks simultaneously playing. It was like being in a big studio. And that actually helped me to hone my skills, because when you're doing composing for the video games, you need to adapt your music. You need to adapt it fast. If there are things that need to be changed, shortened, lengthened, whatever, you need to be able to go back to original project, open it up, change things, and deliver the asked changes. And if I went the route with portable studios or proper studios, it would just take more money, more time, very expensive, unprofitable in the end. And working on a computer allowed me to quickly deliver ask changes. And that's actually how I got the job, my initial gig with Croteam. I knew them through a friend of mine, and I asked them if they need a musician, and they said, yeah, the current musician is slow. He was recording using samplers and studios, and they need something quicker, faster. So I sent them a few demos. And of course, it was, can you change this? Can you remove this? And I was, yes. And I sent it in 2 hours. Oh my God, this is so fast. How do you do this? Magic. So yeah, that's one of the biggest advantages I had at that time compared to the other composers. And that's how I got my first gig, the first encounter.
Yeah. So this was for which video game was that?
Serious Sam, the first encounter. It was the game Croteam started working on 1997. Then they switched to the new engine. They started working on the proper 3D engine. And in 1998, they had this, let's say, a skeleton of a game, which was then called In the Flesh. It was a huge game, featured 40 different levels, variety of settings. And then it was slowly converted into something more, something that could actually be done on time and budget. And that turned out to be the first Serious Sam. And the story of that game was, it was the Serious engine, the engine that was running the game. It was capable of something that no current engines were able to do. It was rendering large, vast landscapes and literally running and rendering hundreds of enemies on the same screen at once, which was unseen. If you remember the games like Doom and Quake, it was mostly corridors, sewers, stuff like that, and very few enemies. And the Serious Sam was like a throwback to the beginning, to the Doom games, where you have hundreds of imps charging at you. But it was all in 3D with fantastic graphics and in amazing Egyptian settings. And this is what actually sold the game to the gamers. It was just a pure fun. It was bleeding high-edge tech. It ran very smoothly on various machines at the time. And it had an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, I do. I do remember that people who I've seen play that, and I played. I don't know which one it was. This was probably when I was still in like upper preliminary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea which Serious Sam that was. But my friend had that, and I remember basically all of the guys playing it, and it was super fun. Like the entire gameplay cycle was just like taking a drug. Like it was super, fast and fun.
Well, if it was happening in Egypt, that's the first Serious Sam we ever released.
I think so.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Yeah. It was released in 2001. 2001.
Okay,
and the second encounter was in 2002. And then it was like the first two games, first and second encounter, were supposed to be one game. But we were a small team. We were 10 of us. And I did the sound and music. So 9 guys were doing everything else. And with such a small team, we decided to release 2 games instead of 1. Let's do the first one. Let's polish half of the game the best we can. So we'll see the reaction. And the reaction was amazing. We even won the Game of the Year from GameSpot Award 2001. We won the Game of the Year awards, and people had so much fun that the sequel, the second encounter, second half of this Serious Sam 1 was also received very positively. I think it even had better scores than the first encounter. And then it's 2005, we decided to release a full sequel, Serious Sam 2, which was a crazy, large game which had no filter at all. All the ideas we had, oh, this is great, let's put it in. Hey, clown with cakes with bombs. Yeah, let's put it in. Rhino with wind-up mechanism. Oh, awesome. So it was unfiltered game, and it's very polarized in reviews. Some people love it because it was very ahead of its time. Some people hate it because it was cartoonish, and it was a big step away from the first and second encounter, from the first two games. But personally, it's the craziest, wackiest game we ever made. We made it completely without anybody pushing us, remove this, add this. So it was just fun. And I think it's crazy game. And I don't know, I'm looking at the reviews right now on Steam 20 years later, and people love it. People are still playing it. People say this is so crazy. What were you smoking? Because the cutscenes and stuff like that, it was so weird. We were inspired by Monty Python and such weird humor, and we added all of this into the game. So people really thought we were doing drugs or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Was that for the development cycle for the first game or the two? That sounds kind of very typical, that you have this grand vision, and as you begin to make it happen, you realize that it's going to take a lot more time and effort and resources than you realized, and then you have a smaller slice of the big pie, but you actually try and make it better. Do you feel like that's something that happens in music for you as well? Like, do you have a big sort of grand vision at first and then you chop away at it, or is that at all applicable to the creative process music-wise?
I think this is applicable to everything, because if you dream small, you're going to get results that are small. But if you dream big and you try to do the best you can, even if it's at first you look at it and you say this is impossible to do, but then you try to do it, you'll get to the point where you'll probably say, okay, this is the best I can do with this time frame, with the knowledge I have, with the people I can. But turns out that the best you could do was much better if you thought of it as this is such a small game, or this is such a small project, this is short music. You always achieve more if you dream big. So yeah, definitely. When I'm doing music, I have dreams of 4-hour-long soundtracks which expand and which have leitmotifs that are shared. And sometimes I write all of this down, and what I end up is usually half of that. But that's still more than if I said, okay, this game needs this, this, and this. I would probably do just that, and that's it. But by dreaming big, I'm able to create better stuff, more quality stuff. So definitely, don't dream small, dream big. This is like whenever a young composer asks me, so something like, hey, what are your advices? Dream big, learn all the time, do the best you can. It's how you'll be able to move yourself away from your comfort zone. Because all of us composers, we probably all have a rich favorite instrument, our template setup, something that's familiar. And I also have something like this. I start Nuendo, and then I load my setup, and it's all layered there. And I used to have for Serious M4, I built this slave machine using a Vienna tool, which allows me to offload my instruments to the secondary machine. And yeah, that was instrument set that I kind of decided this is going to be my instrument set, instrumentation that I'm going to use for the Serious Sam 4. And I used mostly this orchestra, these samples, some specific stuff, which also helps to glue whole soundtrack. If you're using same sounds, it's gonna all sound like part of the same universe. But still, it was limiting. So for the Talos Principle, especially for the Talos Principle 2, I started with a blank slate. My every music project was just empty Nuendo project. And I was deciding on the spot, what am I going to add to this project? So what am I going to, which instruments I'm going to use? And I always try to use different ones. But knowing what vibe and style I want to achieve helped me, again, to glue all these songs together. So they all sound different because the instrumentations are very different from song to song, but they're all part of the same universe. They share the universal vibe. If I explain this correctly.
Yeah.
If you get
No, I understand. Yeah. But that's like about the dreaming big part. It's pretty much every project starts with all these grandiose ideas, but then it needs to sort of collapse back into reality. And what creativity really is, sort of paradoxically, is exclusion and restriction. Because if you have this infinite pool of everything, nothing is anything. And so you, as a musician or a game developer, whatever you do, it's about selecting the things that do stay there. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like well, I don't know. Do you have any comments on that?
You just said restrictions, and this is actually a very good point. Imagine being given a project and they say, okay, you can do whatever you want, you have unlimited time, just be creative. And then if they do this to me, I'll just be procrastinating for the first 5-6 weeks. And then if it's 2-month project, last 2 weeks, I'm going to hit into panic mode. Okay, I need to do something. Compared to when I have deadlines and restrictions. And when I have restrictions, I have to think fast. I have to snap it, work fast. And it actually helps my productivity. Having some limitations. Okay, this is the deadline, but we need prototype music by this date, and it needs to fit, it needs to loop, and giving all these restrictions actually fuses and lights up my creativity. And it's a perfect example of, I tried, when we finish the project, we usually have some time to rest. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do my own stuff. I did nothing. It was just, I did exactly nothing. It was just, this is not good. This is not good. Oh, look, this new gear has come up. I'm going to look at the review. Oh, the new album is out. I'm going to listen to it. And then I try again, and maybe tomorrow. And compared to having limitations, restrictions, deadlines, it's, at least that's how it works for me. For someone else, maybe having all the freedom in the world, all the time in the world, no pressure, maybe that's something that lights up that composer's creativity. But for me, it's the restrictions that you mentioned. Is it the same for you, or?
So I don't really find, obviously, if you have an external deadline bearing upon you, that's a very different force than having more time and imposing like a imaginary deadline on yourself. But I think for me, it has been really more about figuring out how can I find a process that is effective and efficient every single day, regardless of whether there is a deadline. I'm not like, for me, writing music takes time. And like this is a kind of a difficult thing to maybe describe, but I can write a track in a day. It's not going to be mixed, and it's not going to be like superbly arranged and polished. But once the inspiration strikes, I'm really fast. Like I can output really fast at that sort of a level. For me, most of the time goes into mixing and fine tuning the programming, of the MIDI, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I really try to get to a space where it doesn't matter whether I have a deadline or not, because I, like you said, I know what it's like to procrastinate and just kind of chill and take it easy. But fundamentally, I dislike that in myself so much that I try not to tolerate it at all. And the fundamental fact is that I know once I start working, I'm loving it. So if I'm procrastinating, I know that I could be doing something so much better and something a lot more fun that I enjoy, and I get meaning and purpose from that. So I'm quite strict on myself. Like if I catch myself procrastinating, I'm just sort of, I know I'm fucking it up right now, and then I have a bunch of different techniques that I deploy to just try and get into writing as fast as possible. But I do
you feel you need some rest, like when you do some things intensely, days, weeks. Do you feel you need some rest and then just take some time away of composing? Because I feel I need this. It's.
I wouldn't say that I need time away from music per se. One of the things that is something I need rest from is simply ear fatigue. Like you need your ears to rest, because if you come back to the studio and they're just exhausted and tired because you've been working, 3-5 days in a row, like listening to a lot of music, that's the biggest one for me. But what I try and do, like when I get, you know that feeling when you get stuck with a track and you get sick of a project and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Every
single one of my projects is like that.
Yeah, I try and have something on the side that I can jump into, something productive, because sometimes you have 2 projects at the same time or multiple. So I like to cycle through things. I like to do something different. But I don't really feel like I need a break away from music overall. I might need a break to get perspective from a certain type of a sound and a certain project that I'm working on. But I really like to cycle my activities because it kind of refreshes your perspective. And it's such a good feeling. Oftentimes when I get stuck on a track, I'll close the session, I'll open up the other project. So let's say I have something electronic here and I have something orchestral here. It's really refreshing for me to jump from one to the other, because they're sort of, in many ways, not opposites to each other, but very, very different. So it kind of releases a lot of the frustration of being stuck with certain type of sounds.
It's actually a good tip. Just switch to another project. The thing is, I'm an in-house composer for Croteam, and most of the time we're working on single projects. So I can switch from one song where I'm stuck to the other song where I'm stuck.
Yeah, but it could also be something else. It doesn't have to be music. Like sometimes, if I'm working on a track and I just like hit a wall, then I'll switch to working on this podcast, for example, or I'll go and do a workout. But it's like procrastination for me is poison. It feels so horrible. Especially when you know that life is short and there's a lot of things that I want to do in life, so I just want to feel like I'm actually engaging with life and not not just procrastinating. But
time.
But I'm definitely prone to procrastination because a part of me wants to relax and just take it easy. And I think there's a time and place for that, but I like to schedule that in. And for me, it's mostly when I get back home and I'm with the kid, I sort of take that as relaxation. I just, surrender myself to the flow of the chaos that is the toddler. And that's I need specific time slots for everything. That seems to work the best for me, at least right now.
You sound very well organized, much better than I am, and I consider myself organized person.
But probably, well, I try to be. It's like it's one thing to know this in theory, and it's another thing to apply it.
That's true.
So a lot of the time, I'm pretty solid on the theory of what I should do, but the practice is of course a different story, because we are subject to our own, you know, biological existence. Like, you get distracted by certain things, and you get hungry, or you need to use the toilet, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see
yeah.
something that distracts you, and
It's
your brain.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that you mentioned switching to another thing. Actually, yeah. Now that I think, whenever I'm stuck with some music, I switch to sound design, which is completely different workflow. So, or I fix some bugs, or I add some sounds to the game, create something new, and then I go back to the music. So I haven't really thought about that the way you said it, but that's actually probably my way of getting back the inspiration I need to do the music again. So it's just not switching from music to music track; it's switching to sound design.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
What's your sound design is something that I probably know even far less about than I realize, but in sort of, and you can take this anywhere you want, but in sort of general terms, what is that process like for you? Do you go out? Do you do field recordings, or do you use, you know, existing libraries, and or do you, you know, play with synthesizers? What is that process like for you? And maybe some of the, you know, application examples of,
Yeah.
for example, what you might be doing right now.
When are we airing this episode? Do you have any date?
It's not set in stone. So if you want to release after a certain release date of a project, we can do that for sure.
Okay, because then I can talk about the work I'm doing currently, which is set to release mid-June. So if you wait for 2 more weeks, 3, is that okay?
Yeah. No, it's perfectly fine by me. Yeah.
Okay. So you asked about the general process of sound design. I absolutely hate going out and field record everything. It's I think, you know,
I love this because there are a lot of people out there who love field recordings.
Yes,
to
I
death.
know.
You know, they're like cultists.
I know, and I admire every one of these people. They go out there, they capture their own sounds, they go back, they manipulate that sound, and they probably spend 8 hours on something I do in 3 minutes by using an existing sound from the library and manipulating it in creative ways. So I think when you're searching for bespoke sound, something bespoke, something that you really can't find in any of the libraries, then absolutely. I also have my Zoom H5 recorder with different microphone capsules that I can switch on, which I used for some of the, not saying field recording, I recorded fully in studio, but some specific sounds which I couldn't find in the libraries. I was working on a roulette game, so I actually had to use my marble and a ball, you know, to get this roulette spinning sound, stuff like that. So yeah, I did some of the recordings myself, but I found out that I have tons of libraries, and all the footsteps have been recorded so many times by so many people that
yeah, but there isn't a signature footstep of you. You need to start selling that on your website.
Because if you use the single sound, the basic sound, and you pick it up from sound library and put it in your game, that's bad. That's bad practice. I never encourage sound designers to do this. I always say layer sounds. Just pick them from one library, from 7 libraries, layer, and use as many layers as you can. There are a lot of sounds that can be used to layer beneath the plain footsteps to make them sound more interesting. Even if you want to make a heavy mech, I can just take a steel step sound and add some sub bass and add some kick drum and mix them lightly, and it will give it impact and weight. I don't know if you watch TV series, but the Halo series made from the video game Halo.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I listen to that show because sometimes I just close my eyes when I watch TV series or movie, and I listen to sound design and the sound of power armor and the Master Chief walking is so amazing. It's so brutal. It's raw. It's fierce. It makes you feel like he's the guy weighing 500 kilos in that armor. He probably is if it's a power armor. But the sound design can go in many directions. And yes, recording your own sounds and then manipulating them. If you have time, as said earlier, if I had, hey, you have 3 months to design 10 sounds, go out there, record and capture them, bring them home, record them, reamp them, use tape tracks, be creative. Yeah, oh, sure. But if you're on time and you're a single guy doing, it's not AAA, but we do A games. The Talos Principle 2 is currently, I believe, on Unreal, on Epic Game Store. It's the screenshot from our game is under the Epic Launcher when you download Unreal, something like that. So it's an A game. It's beautifully executed, and it uses all the latest Unreal and engine tech. And if you're working on something like this, something this big, then you need to, especially if you're doing music and sounds, you need to be able to deliver sounds quickly, swiftly. And if I go the field recording way, it's going to take ages. But if I use existing libraries, and then you mentioned synths, and yes, I use synths a lot. And I found out the synth sounds, I use Serum, Omnisphere, Hybrid, those synths, Massive. So all those synths I layer beneath the recorded sound effects. Of course, if the user case requires it. I want layers, I don't know, synthesizer under something organic, probably. But yeah,
Probably.
I layered sounds. Probably, yeah.
No promises.
I layered the synthesizers under a lot of stuff that you would never think of, like cat roar and stuff like that. So, but layering sound is 99% of what I do through sound design. Then manipulating it through various FX chains, and I love using Doppler a lot, making it sound like in Star Wars, the pod racers. I love manipulating pitch, and I do these small pitch variations. I love creative gating. There is this amazing plugin, I think it's called the Gatekeeper, which allows you to gate in time. It has these bars and beats, and then you just draw in your perfect gate. And once you hit play, it goes through the gating process and creates something very musical out of the sound. I love using specialized plugins. There is a company called Croteam, and Croteam, I think they're from Ireland or something, or UK. They are making plugins which are used mainly in cinema. So they have this dehumanizer plugin where you input your voice through microphone, and it turns you into ogre, and it turns you into T-Rex. And we all know it's very expensive to hire an ogre to do voice recording. So
is that in
my
their
own
ad?
voice. Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in their ad, I think, a few days. So, and I liked it. I laughed. Sometimes they have really nice commercial. It's very expensive to hire an ogre. So I laughed, and I remember that bit. And actually, it's true. You can turn your voice into whatever you want. I even designed some of artist presets for them. So if you want to download, you can try some of the presets I used for Series M4. So yeah, various things. Sound libraries, all layered all the time, using synthesizer plugins beneath it, using specialized plugins, doing live pitch shifting, mixing, low pass, high pass filtering throughout the sound. These are all techniques I use when I design sounds for the game. And then there is implementation, which is complicated. So you need to make sure your sound is positioned correctly in the 3D world. It's not, the range of the sound is not too big. It's not too small. that the sound is not annoying. If it's looping, that it's looping perfectly. If you're running past it, it must utilize all these engine Doppler effects, making it sound like you are running past it. Then you need to take care of memory when you're implementing this into the engine. If you're working for a PC, you can get away with memory consumption because today the memory is really cheap. But if you're making a game for consoles, they have limited memory. Most of the memory space on consoles goes towards graphics. Let's be honest. We all want visual eye candy. So trying to determine the best value, memory consumption, CPU consumption versus quality is something that I do during the implementation phase. Then I can perhaps say for PlayStation, the sounds are not going to be in wave format. They're going to be converted into Vorbis. Then I can adjust the quality. Then for all the stereo sounds, I can sum them into mono. If they're 3D positions, it's a must. For the sound, for the music, which is like songs 5 minutes long sometimes, I can set them to be streaming. And since new consoles have NVMe drives, which are very fast, it's no problem if the music does not occupy the memory, but it streams directly from the disk. You still have plenty of bandwidth for the streaming available. So it's all these little things, optimization, decisions. Sometimes I won't put 15 random steps for the console. I will select 3 or 4, but I'll do more variety in pitch for every sound. So this is how you optimize stuff for different platforms. And it's very important part of the process. So because sometimes you can get away with just a few sounds, but you can reuse them. If I use the same sound, but pitch shift 2 octaves higher with an added distortion plugin, it can be used for something else. And reusing of the sound is also important during the implementation phase. So I said it's quite complicated. It's something I've been doing also for the past 25 years. Besides designing sounds, I've been implementing them in our own proprietary engine, then in Unreal. And for the Unreal, I use a middleware. There is a tool actually called Wise, which is an audio engine itself with a dedicated GUI interface where me as a sound designer, I can do 99% of things I envision without asking my colleagues, programmers, to do some specific coding to support this in the game. Any animation, I can add sounds myself by adding certain triggers inside the animations file, stuff like that. And it's quite useful to be able to work without restrictions and waiting. I hate waiting. I have this beautiful sound, and then we have to add this to the enemy. And then I wait, and then the coders have a long list of tasks before they come to implement Damjan sounds. So being able to do this myself, it sparks the creativity as well. You can iterate fast. You can add sounds, then you play test it, you see what works, what doesn't. Do we need to change the range? Is the sound too ear piercing? Is it too high? Does it gives you emotional impact? And you can change this very quickly yourself.
Yeah, it's also
that's the sound process for me.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty important too. Also, from a professionalism standpoint, to load your coworkers as little as possible. So if you can do it yourself, you probably should.
I agree with you on that. We are still, by some standards, we are a small team. We are it was 10 of us during our first game, then 12 of us during our second game. Then we grew up to 25 people on Serious M2. And then on Serious M4, it was 40. And now we are 30 something. People come and go. People come, go, then return. We have this all the time. It's it's here. It's more like some sort of family. It's like a large orchestra. Players come, go, they return, they go back. We keep good relations with everyone who has ever worked here in Croteam. So yeah, with 30 people, 30 developers right now, and plans that we have for the future, being able to do as much work yourself without loading others, it's a must. And it's not just for the sound, it's for every other aspect of the game. If let's say our writers can have a tool that will help them implement all the narrative into the game in form of dialogues, branching, stuff like that, and they don't need to ask coders to support it. They just import all of this and it's all in the game. It's a beautiful thing. It's something that speeds up the game development cycle. So
yeah,
we all wear many hats. Yeah, that's
coders have already enough work to begin with, so it's good if they don't have to deal with the music.
I don't trust them all the time, but they say, "Oh, we're so busy." Come on, it's all ChatGPT now.
Is your studio in the same building with the rest of the team, or?
Yes, I'm actually at the same floor. My room is part of the office. So if I open this black door behind me, you would see the Croteam's. There are just some posters of the game. This is our hallway. So I just show Markus. Are we airing this in video or just the podcast?
Both.
Oh,
video
both.
And audio. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, you saw it's a hallway and there are rooms there. But ever since the COVID, it didn't show. Okay, sorry. But ever since the COVID, we have learned that we can make a game remotely. So when in 2020, when COVID struck and it was everyone just shut down the offices, and it was a complicated time. We were used to working from the office. It was all of us in the office. It was a bit of scary time. Will we be able to adapt to work from home? But we have good IT guys here, and they quickly came up with solutions. We moved some of the servers to the cloud. We allowed people to join in from home. And it was in 3 weeks, we had everything set up, and we still improve this setup every week. There is something new, some small improvement on is it a faster network or new cloud servers or new protocols. But it's our IT guys are doing hell of a job by making all of this remote work as smooth and effective as possible. So right now in the office, there are like 5 people. It's me and a few of my colleagues that come and go, and occasionally we have some, meetings here. When you just want to see someone in person, you miss the people. We all see each other on cameras, and you sometimes miss the pure joy of hanging out with friends. But we are now used to work remotely, and it's been working pretty good. So the Talos Principle 2 was conceived and developed mostly by remote work. And it works for us. We found ourselves that, when you're in the office, you want to grab a coffee, you want to have a chat with friends, you want to go through latest of the Netflix movies, stuff like that. And when everybody's from home, people are actually, we found out they're more effective. Even if they work less hours, they're just, the input is more effective. So, we do not plan to change anything. And whoever wants to come anytime from the office, he has his own workplace here. There is a spot for each and every member of Croteam, dedicated space, readily available. So
do you have a setup at home, or do you always have to come to the
No,
studio?
I was the only guy during the COVID. Since I built this studio, I was building it from 2017 to 2019. It was 2 years from plans. It's you don't see it, but it's a room within a room. That's how it was built. It has a small room next to this one, which is an anechoic chamber with two glass doors. The doors you saw behind me, there are one of two. There is the other pair, which is opened on the outside right now. Everything in the walls, it's a mineral wool. The speakers are integrated into front walls, so I have flush mounted them. I have two 18-inch subwoofers with 4 kilowatts of power and 15-inch coaxial drivers by RCF, the custom built. The amps are custom built, the speakers are custom built. So I couldn't work from home. And especially my house is not that big. So with two kids, at one time, my wife said, "Now move out your stuff. There's going to be a kids' room."
That happened to me as well.
Yeah. At one point, kids grow up and...
Yeah, except I proposed it myself as a solution. Because, I mean...
I didn't.
Yeah, but I, realistically, there was no way we could have enough space. So I was like, yeah, I should probably find a space for myself. With your setup now, do you find it very difficult or impossible to work in any other environment? Because I also have quite a bit of treatment here. It's a pretty good room at this point, pretty good speakers. I don't feel like I get to a level of clarity and detail pretty much anywhere else. It's very tough for me to work anywhere else. And also here it's super quiet. This is kind of like in the countryside a bit. So it's like super dead. And I mostly have, it's absorption here. So it's like complete silent quietness. Do you find that you just don't work on music anywhere else anymore?
Well, I to be honest, I don't work anywhere else because I have this studio. So being in-house composer, this is my dedicated space, and I don't have the setup at home. So I occasionally come to my friend's studio. This is where I keep my guitar amps. I have 14 tube amps. So
does your wife know?
Yeah, shut up. She doesn't watch this podcast. Yeah, she knows about 6, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, we can cut this part out, probably. We're going to see. So,
let's cut
I
it
have
in the
14
edit.
tube amps. I have 14 tube amps. Okay, let's not cut it. Let's just make fun of it. And what I'm doing right now, we are profiling these amps. So in this age where there has been a really big advancement in guitar sound, and it has come in the form of profiling amps like Quad Cortex, Kemper. And this is stuff...
Is that in your desk?
That's the Kemper. And I love the sound of profile. I love actually the profiler gives me a quick way to get excellent sound into my DAW. Because if I wanna record amp, there are some prerequisites. I need to close both doors. I need to decide on microphones. I need to find the perfect position of the mics. I can't change much of that sound. It's complicated, and some of the amps are one-trick ponies. Now they get this, the PV, I have 6505 Plus. It has this metal sound, which is one of the best I ever heard, but that's about it. The clean sound is nothing to write home about. And with profilers and the presets that you can make them yourself, and right now we are profiling all of 14 amps, but you can also download some artist presets that have been done in some amazing studios by people who really have been doing guitar recording for decades. And they sound amazing out of the box. And I use this quite a lot whenever I have to lay down guitars quickly. I just use the profile sound, and I record both affected sound through the guitar amp profile and the direct sound, which I can then later use to reamp through any of my tube amps, and just make it sound like recorded through the proper guitar amp and proper cabinet, which is very important. Cabinet moves a lot of air, and when playing live, I prefer playing through the cabinet and amp than through profiler, because profiler goes usually directly to the PA, and it just doesn't move that air that much like 4 guitar 12-inch Celestion speakers right in front of you, which pump so much bass and air that you just feel it. But still, for the efficiency, I think the digital profiler wins. So yeah, I use it a lot. It's
Yeah, well, it's kind of like similar to the field recording thing. Like, you could go out there and spend 8 hours recording birds and rocks and stuff, but you could also, pick up the profiler now and just do the part straight away without setting up the mic. And obviously the process of setting up and recording can be super fun and enjoyable, but when you're on a deadline, that kind of drops pretty fast. And also, yeah, I mean, also if you want to get to the music as fast as possible and the playing, then there are very strong benefits to the faster solutions.
I mean, I'm always on some sort of deadline, so I can't remember the last time. The last time when I didn't have a deadline was the procrastination time. Oh, no deadline. But I'm always on a deadline, so just getting everything correctly. I might go back, revisit the certain tracks, certain recordings I did, and do them again, maybe with different setup, maybe with basically change something, because I leave the song to marinate. When I'm finished with the song, I just leave it for a day or two to marinate, like in cuisine, and then I listen to it, and then I write down, or at least try to do some mental notes. Oh, this part needs change. This is not the best sound for it. Then I go back with fresh mind, and I try to do all these changes as fast as I can. Like in 15 minutes, render it out, leave it. Then I listen it, having fresh ears, and stepping away from the song you did, just to later go back to it. It's very important part of the process, because you always have, I found out, you have more clarity and more objectivity when you come back later to your work than at the end of the day, when you have the ear fatigue that you mentioned at the beginning, and when you're just tired of everything and want to go home, take a shower and rest. So yes, this is the process of having a rest, then listening with a fresh and open mind, and then changing stuff quickly is something that helps me make my song sound better.
Yeah, it's remarkable what the brain, the mind, the subconscious, what it does with the music when you're not working on it. Like if I had hit any kind of a wall, I know it's time to get your hands off, unless there's like an immediate deadline. But it's remarkable. You just let it, like you said, marinate in your head. You just leave it there, and you come back to it the next time, and immediately you know what to do with it. Like,
exactly,
it's extraordinary. So a lot of the time I say, like, just leave it and come back to it tomorrow or in a couple of days. Your mind is working on that. It's chewing, it's analyzing on that, and the next time you listen to it, you're just like, how did I not hear that last time? So managing that, managing that space is super important. Going back to the just because I want to give people an idea of how these careers are sort of, where they come from, how did these different opportunities happen. You mentioned that you knew somebody from Croteam, like you had a friend there. Could you maybe speak about how that connection came to be, so because what I've realized is that a lot of people don't know how projects come to you, or where you can find these kind of opportunities and get to write some music for something.
Well, yeah, I was lucky. So my best friend at the time, he knew, he was going to high school with a guy who was a neighbor of the Croteam's lead programmer, and then there were these high school parties, some birthdays, so we all mingled together. So I met the guy from Croteam, and we became friends. And once I approached him with the offer to do music, it was much easier for me than for somebody today sending a cold call or just an email out of the blue. Hey, hire me, I'm a composer. Because looking at it was a different time. There are not many people. The game composer was not something that you would aim for. To be honest, it was not a dream job. Oh, I'm going to be a game composer, because at the end of 90s, the music was still they were using. When I say MIDI, I'm thinking of this embedded MIDI sound library that was in the sound cards, which was general MIDI 2 megabyte memory for 127 instruments, and sorry, but it sounded quite bad. So it was at that time they started switching music to the MP3 or something encoded, which could keep the file size low, which was a requirement at the days, but still give that production quality that modern records of those times had. And today it's quite different. I don't see any limits, for music, at least when we talk about implementation and format and clarity. And the quality has gone up tremendously. We can now see the film composers, TV composers, the guys like Bear McCreary, who I love from Walking Dead, Outlander. So, and yeah, absolutely, Battlestar Galactica. So he joined in on God of War, and we seen the people, even Hans Zimmer, Lon Balf, joining was it Call of Duty or Battlefield? I think Call of Duty soundtracks. So the quality is definitely today here, and when there is quality and where there is such big range of composers and names, it's harder than ever to penetrate these markets. And if you ask me what would be the advice for the young composers, I actually have an idea. There are a lot of indie game studios. So your best chance, if you're a young composer, first you need to be a good composer. This is, I know many people maybe don't take that serious, but you need to make good quality stuff. And your sound needs to sound stellar. Because if it's some mediocre stuff, it's like mediocre game. It's going to go unnoticed. So your songs, whatever you do, sound design, it needs to be top of the pops. And then what you can do, you can visit, there is a website where young indie studios, which still might not have a publisher, or funding, they post the demos of their games. It's called itch.io. Don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to download trending demos, and you can see a lot of creative games there, and you can play them, because most of the time it's just a free demo download. And what you can do, you can find the game that you actually like. I think being a video game composer, one of the requirements is that you love video games and that you really play video games and that you enjoy them. And I know people who are not into games, they're still making music for games, but I found the people who enjoy playing games more successful in this area. So you find the game you like, you listen to the sounds, you listen to the music, and you see if you can improve it. Sometimes it's perfect as it is, But sometimes it's they could do this, they could do that. And then what you do this, you record your video of playing yourself through their game. You add your sound design, your music for that part, and send it to the developer. Show it how it can be, how their game can be better with your input. And that actually, I gave this advice a year ago to a friend of mine, and it worked. She got a job for horror video game, and she's working on it right now. And I think it's a way to go, because without any previous credits that you have, without experience in game audio, you need to be much more luckier than I was back at the day, to join some team and to make music or sound for that game. So yeah, I don't know if this sounds to you like a solid advice, but
no, I think it's excellent advice, and that's I would recommend us doing the same thing. The thing that people don't realize is that you have to place yourself in the position of the developer or whomever is in control of that project. Because if you just get an email saying, "Oh, I'm a composer, I do this kind of stuff," maybe you put a link of demonstrating whatever it is that you do, you're not delivering any value to that person, and you're asking them to put in work and time to figure out and assess whether you are the right person for the project, and probably they don't have that time. So like you said, if you can already do the work, which by the way is going to impress that person, that hey, this person took their own time and effort and they put into my game without any guarantees of any results or outcomes, that's going to impress them, and they're going to appreciate that. Like you said, it requires that the music is actually good. Like that's the foundational requirement. You can't bypass that in any way. But granted, if the music is good, then you do the work, you demonstrate that to the person directly, and you give that value up front. And immediately, if you are the right person for that, they're going to know, and they're going to jump on that really, really fast. So I think that's really, really solid advice. And probably depending on how this coming autumn is going to go, I'm probably going to do that myself, depending on whether I get a project or not. But yeah, also touching on your original connection to the Croteam, it's still really important because most of the people that I know that have, who got a good project and made a career out of it, there was some kind of a personal connection there. Like, so that shouldn't be underestimated. I don't know what that would mean in terms of giving advice. I'm not the right person to give any, but last year through our current game, I did go to 2 video game conventions in Germany and Japan. Gamescom, and then we went to Tokyo Game Show as well.
Game Show.
Yeah, so it is super important to meet people, and when you do, just try and be natural. Like if you're out there to like get a project and you want to get your claws in, people they sense that very quickly. So just try and meet people and try and make friends and play their games and share what you think. And beyond that, it's the chips will fall where they may, but it's not in your control. But just try and make real connections, because I'm sure in your situation as well, I'm sure there was good chemistry or things aligned in many ways that allowed you to get that job.
I agree with networking being really important, especially in game development. I mean, the industry, it's big. We all know it's bigger than music and film industry put together times 5. But the world of game developers, at least here in Croatia, is we all know each other. It's an industry where even if you don't know personally, you heard about that person, you followed him, saw his post somewhere on game chats where we all hang, and somehow you know that person, and you can probably reach it if you need to. And we have this. You mentioned Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, and yeah, I go to Gamescom regularly. I love to meet developers there, and it's a really great few days of just hanging out, trying out new games. I do come there for work, so we are usually there to present some of our projects. But it's still, I find time to revisit some of old friends, meet some new ones, and that part of networking. Sometimes, yes, sometimes it leads to new jobs, and if it doesn't lead to new jobs, it leads to new experiences, and you can always learn something. If you just people love to talk. If you listen, you can learn so much more than if you just keep talking. We have a game developers conference in Dubrovnik every April. It's here in Croatia, the beautiful city of Dubrovnik. It's called the Reboot Develop. And it's for Croteam, it's like a field trip. We all go there. We hang out, we visit some of the talks. Some of us give talks. I actually do a talk every year, ever since 2016, I think. And I met a lot of people there. I met some of the composers, sound designers that are my idols. Some of the young composers met me and told me I was their idol. I met people who were just relaxed, as you said, hey, let's hang out. I also met people who gave me their CD, or it was the USB stick. Listen to my portfolio, and the next day, have you listened to it? No, I didn't bring my laptop. It's like don't do this. It's just try to be natural. Try not to push yourself too much. It kind of can get annoying.
Yeah,
I try to keep an open mind, but yeah, you said it's kind of annoying at the time. But having all these networked connections, all these people, meeting them, talking with them, I don't know. It can lead, and it's led me to different directions. I didn't just work on Croteam games. In the end, we had this thing called Incubator here, where we supported young teams who perhaps were unable to make the game themselves. They needed, I don't know, office space, computers, know-how. So we supported them. We brought them here. We gave them guidance, sometimes funding. So whatever was needed, to help them release their games. And I worked on those projects. I helped them with the sounds and music. And yeah, I also worked on some projects outside of Croteam in my spare time, where I found that this network of people I've been nurturing, it really helped me, be seen and made people hear about me. I never asked you, how did you hear about me? How was it that you asked me to be in podcasts?
Originally, Talos Principle 1 soundtrack. So I heard that. Well, first of all, I love the game. And then I heard the soundtrack, and I thought, like, this is super interesting. When I listened to that soundtrack, it's sort of mystical, and and this is a compliment. It's sort of a bit sterile sounding, which kind of adds to the whole setting of it. Like, there's this kind of synthetic quality to it. So there's kind of a religious presence, and then you have this kind of synthetic quality, and a beautiful marriage of sort of emptiness and sort of soulful presence. I don't know if that gets a bit too artsy, but that's probably my best shot at describing it. But yeah, I love that soundtrack, and obviously back then I googled who it was, and yeah, I've been listening to it for years now. So that's originally how I came across your stuff. And I was actually then later surprised to learn that you did the Serious Sam stuff, which kind of took me back to my preliminary school times. And I was like, oh, cool. And it's a big contrast. So I'm also impressed by the spectrum of stuff that you can do. And for the past few weeks, I've been listening to Talos Principle 2 soundtrack also for in out of interest and also preparation for this. But yeah, that's how I came across your work originally.
Yeah, it's all different styles. Even Talos 2 is different, as you noticed by now, from Talos 1. So Talos 1 was happening inside the digital synthetic simulation, but tackled the issues of philosophy, religion, humanism, and some of the more philosophical stuff. So explaining it as a synthetic religious soundtrack is quite a good wording, for that soundtrack. And did you play the Talos Principle 2 or just listen to the soundtrack? Do you want me to spoil you with a story or just skip it?
I haven't played it yet.
I will try it. Say anything.
Yeah. Probably not spoil it, but I guess we could. I did hear a bit of a summary at some point, so I know some of the general principles there. But I guess we could go into that now since we're talking about it, because, well, first of all, it's going into writing Talos Principle 2. What was your vision for that? Because you have this, obviously, the soundtrack for 1, which has a very, I would say, a very successful sound to it. Like you managed to, create this sonic world for 1. What was the process of like visualizing and creating a vision for the sound of Talos Principle 2? Did you sort of want to take that same sound from 1 and sort of iterate it to 2, or maybe you could go through some of your thinking behind that process?
So the stories of Talos 1 and Talos 2 are different. So Talos 1, you played it, you know about it. It's a simulation. The whole game is a simulation where the human legacy was to create a sentient AI, which will be basically the new humanity. Because once the humans like us are gone, who will carry the torch? Who will keep the human legacy? So it was all a simulation meant to develop smart, sentient, self-aware AI. And we approached this as the simulation had 3 different settings. So of course, we decided to go with 3 a bit of ethnic styles. That they have certain instrumentation that it's specific to each of the 3 settings. And one of the major points was we should have no drums, as in rhythms, loops or drum patterns, stuff like that. As if you remember the Egypt locations, there are some tablas playing occasionally, but more as a sound effects than as something giving rhythm here. So it was one of the cornerstones was no drum patterns, and the other was it needs to feel relaxing. Like this simulation was prepared to ease your mind, to make you relaxed, so you can solve these puzzles without listening to some epic stuff running in the background. So I tried to create soundtrack without too much of the memorable lines and melodies, so it can be looped indefinitely. And it worked. As you said, it's still very serene, calm soundtrack that works. But for the second game happens hundreds of years into the future. And in the first game, you were the robot number 1 to emerge from the simulation, and in the second game you're the last robot, because the robot society that developed out of that simulation decided to stop when they reach 1,000 new humans, and you are number 1K, number 1,000. And that's how the game actually begins. So it's not much of a spoiler right now.
Yeah, I know the kind of general framework.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then
so
perfect.
and by the way, don't because it could be years before I have time to actually play it. So don't, like, if you wanna dig into some aspect of the game from a, like, what it meant in terms of designing the music, please do go into it. You don't have to worry about spoiling things for me.
Okay, so we have this robot character, which is 1K, which is you, the player. And as soon as you are born, something happens. There is a mythical apparition happening in the sky, inviting you to visit the islands full of puzzles. And it's where you start. You still have no idea what's going on. You're a fresh new robot, but there is this community that has been existing for decades, centuries already. The robots who have all interactions like us, regular humans. They love, they hate, they are scared, they are adventurous. They are splitting into different fractions, trying to decide what to do about that new mysterious island with these puzzles. And it felt to me more like a movie. There are new characters, and it's all reality. It's not simulation anymore. And it felt a bit blockbusterish, to me, like I'm watching something from Nolan, Interstellar, or some sci-fi movies, Gravity, things like that. And it was the inspiration from actually these movies, Gravity, Interstellar, Tron, Legacy. It was the inspiration from these movies because I found soundtracks in those movies really amazing. And they're mixing this retro vibe, which I love. We're trying not to go here. If you notice all the design of the Talos Principle, it has a bit of this retro-ish positive vibe. Everything is a bit curved, shiny. It's not dystopian, and like every modern sci-fi today, everything is dark and gloomy and dystopian. We went a bit of the opposite way, and the whole message, once you get to play the game, you'll find that it's actually enlightening and very positive. And it's kind of a positive sci-fi game, something that we felt was missing. So I felt the soundtrack needed to be not the brooding Brahms that are overused in every trailer today, but something that's going to reflect on this positivity, something that will use this 80s, 90s synth vibe, which I think Daft Punk perfectly encapsulated in Tron Legacy soundtrack, and yet enrich it with some modern stuff like what Hans Zimmer does in Interstellar, and with some even more memorable melodies. So I had no such restrictions as I had on Talos 1. I just wanted to make it a good soundtrack that will make the game sound more like a movie, that will give you this epic movie feel, but still not overpower you, so that when you enter a puzzle, you are listening to some ostinatos and some crazy stuff. It's all still very calm, but more memorable, quite a bit different from Talos 1. And I don't know, based on the inputs, we always got these emails and messages from fans, and people seem to love it. I love it. Always when they ask me, what's your favorite soundtrack that you made? It's always my last one. Because I get to use all this knowledge I'm building upon for the last 25 years, and all this stuff that I read about in Sound on Sound magazine, that I watch on YouTube. I am able to try this in my latest soundtrack. So yeah, the next game is going to be probably my best soundtrack that I love the most. So yeah, that's the story. It's quite a bit blockbusterish, yet rooted in this synth legacy of Daft Punk, Vangelis, Hans Zimmer, Stephen Price, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the soundtrack was pretty massive. How many tracks is it?
I can look it up, but I know it's 2 hours. I think it's exactly 2 hours. It's 2 hours, and that's the reduced soundtrack, because I also made sounds for there. We had, of course, cutscenes, many different endings, and so I have this all cinematic stuff that I felt was not part of the puzzle solving experience. So I decided to focus on player's experience when player was solving puzzles, and that's what ended up on the soundtrack. And yeah, there are a lot of cinematic stuff that didn't end up there, and we also used there are quite a lot throwbacks to the Talos one, and you'll encounter this when you play it. So I used a lot of music from Talos 1 just to further make this emotional bond for the players who played the first game, so that they would feel in this specific sequences, they would feel this emotional bond to the first game, and they would remember and have that feeling of why this is happening right now and what exactly is happening. So, and some of the songs I even redid. Some of, I think, 1 or 2 songs from Talos 1. I just re-recorded them again with a different instrumentation, making them a bit richer. And just to further, enhance this feeling of this is a proper sequel, and this events that happened in Talos 1 have big impact on Talos 2.
No, yeah, you can definitely hear the kind of the bridging. There are some similar sound elements that you weave sort of in there, and it definitely binds it in the same world for sure. I looked it up. It's 44 tracks for Talos Principle 2, and I brought that up because I wanted to ask you that. Well, first of all, that's a pretty sizable amount of music. So, how did you sort of maintain your focus and spirits and energy levels going through that much music? And first of all, how long did it take you? And yeah, how did you keep going and go how did you go to the right direction?
Okay, so the 44 tracks you mentioned are half of what I wanted for that game.
So going back to the grand vision,
yes,
exactly.
No, it's more of the soundtrack is always curated collection. Sometimes I for the Talos 1 in-game tracks are a bit different from what ended up on soundtrack, because on soundtrack I joined some of the tracks that in-game are played separately. For the soundtrack, I did join them, so made them specific for that soundtrack. And when you mentioned 44 tracks, we actually wanted to have a bass track for each of the towers. So there is the goal of Talos Principle 2 is to solve 12 big towers, enter them, do something there. Still trying to do it without spoilers. And I wanted to have a basic track, which is like 5-6 minutes long track for each of the towers, and then around 10 tracks or 8 to 10 of the short melodic pieces for each of the towers, which would total 120 tracks plus 1232. Okay, so I nailed 1/3 of it. Still, it's a lot of music. I can't imagine what would it take, to compose the amount that I originally wanted to do. And yes, keeping focus, keeping the inspiration, it's complicated. For me, I found it best to work in chunks. And when I say chunks, we have this specific east, west, north, and south regions. And when I'm working on specific region, this is what I mean under there is a chunk of music that's it's gonna be 1, 2, 5, 6 melodic pieces. Sometimes I kept this in the same project. So I did a piece. Then I said, okay, this time I won't start with a blank one, which is how I did it for the most of the time. Open the blank project, put new instruments. I'm going to keep the instruments here, and I'm just going to try to make a track or two. And of course, this ended up with having another 15 layers of new stuff just for the second track. Still, it was in one project, so some instruments are shared from song 1 to song 2. Then I found that going to some other things, like we talked about this earlier, just thinking about something else, listening to something else, it helped me quite a lot. So I went to listen to, I don't know, the new metal album that was released by, I don't know, Rammstein or someone. Or I went to listen to the soundtrack for some new movie, which is not necessarily in the style and vein of Talos Principle 2, but it just helped me to listen to all these new ideas that these composers brought to the table, and made me rethink of some of perhaps my choices, instrumentation, the key that I'm playing in, some basic stuff, the tempo. And it really helped me to go from song to song, and every time create something new. And the process is usually, I try to get some sort of inspiration from the first instrument. I don't know which instrument it's going to be. I always usually load Omnisphere or Contact, and Contact is a sample, and I have around 200 libraries in Contact. I think I bought everything that's ever existed. So I have, I don't know, it's Spitfire, Orchestral Tools, it's Heaviosity, 8DO, Sonoscore, whole Contact library. I have basically everything there is to try out, and it took a lot of money to collect everything, but when there is a Black Friday, there is a huge document I have, and it's wish list, and then I just go and cross it off the list. So, and whenever I load some instrument, I go to some random presets and I play some random melodies. And sometimes it's like, what Hans Zimmer said on Gladiator, they should hire a real composer. I can't do it. It's just nothing comes to mind. And there is a snap, something happens. There is a short melodic piece, melody, something, which ignites a spark. And I just keep it. Okay, let's add a second layer. Then I load second layer. I think the evolving pad would be nice. Then I run through my usual suspects of synths that I use for pads. Or I go and buy a new one, which is something I don't suggest. But yeah, try to get away with what you already have, And I layer this, and this is like the second layer, and it keeps evolving from there. And it's most of the time I usually make the busiest part. And it's classic pop song, that would be probably chorus. It is the last chorus, the most busiest, most expanded part. And then most of the times, I reverse engineer it. Okay, I have this. It sounds amazing. It lasts 2 bars, 4 bars, whatever. It's beautiful. It has everything. How do I come to this? So I start playing. I try not to copy these parts. I start playing, adding instruments that are already there. They're in the project. I go back. I leave 16, 20 bars, whatever. And I start playing some melodies. I start adding instruments until there is quite a nice build-up that goes to that end chorus. And if you listen to Talos 2 songs, they're mainly structured exactly like that. They have this build-up. When you start, they start quietly, calmly, easily, and then more and more instruments join in until you have the fully developed song, and then it ends with some lingering, leaves you wanting for more. So yeah, that's sort of the process I used. I tried to make the busiest, the most expanded part, and then I reverse engineer it. Sometimes it's just the flow. I play the melody, then I keep playing, then I start adding more notes or changing it, making it sound more busier. I think there's no golden rule here. It's what you feel is right. I did one song. I started with the guitar. I had this. I was listening when I was doing this break from the Talos song. I listened to Pink Floyd. I went back to some of my favorite albums and listening to that Gilmore's guitar sound, which was drained in reverb, so ethereal. And I said, okay, I have this. I'll design a present like this on my profiler. So I made this sound, which was like a wailing guitar, and I started playing with that, and that inspired me to create the whole song, which in the end had this guitar just on few occasions, but it was the spark. It was the initial spark. It gave me inspiration to make a song, and then I reduced it. Okay, it's too much wailing, 3 minutes of guitar, doing it with the tremolo bar. So I just reduced it to some bare bones. Still, I changed the process, so it helped me. So sometimes, yeah, changing the process also helps. Go out of your comfort zone. That's why I both love and hate templates. It's having a template, yeah, can really speed up your workflow. If you need to deliver 10 exactly same song, just slightly different, okay, yeah, I'll do it with a template. But if you want to create something like Talos, where each song is quite unique, yet it's still part of the same world, then I can't go with a template there.
Yeah.
Is your process any different, or do you have like inspiration? Like you wake up, oh, there is a melody playing in your head, then you go quickly and record it? Because I don't have that, and I'm jealous of people who have that.
So, well, I mean, to answer the question, maybe for the most part, I'm very, very inspired by sounds. So right now, it depends on the project, because it depends on the sound that I'm going for. But I really use a lot of the work of great sound designers, like in terms of the people who design presets for different libraries, because I find that to be, it's an art of its own. And usually great sound designers who design presets for different libraries, there can be overlap in terms of them being composers, but for the most part, I've found that they are just sort of masters in the art of designing sounds. And they usually, often they aren't composers themselves. So, but yeah, I like to use their work, because if I hear an interesting sound, immediately I know what I want to do with it. Like when I hear something, I pretty much immediately know what I want to do with it. And that's kind of the same thing if I'm listening to someone else's music. Usually you hear a melody line, or you hear chord progression, and then I hear, okay, I would actually go here from this chord instead of what they did, and then I sort of pursue that. So for me, those are probably the two most common ones. But right now, I use tremendous sample libraries. I use tremendous synths or preset packs for those. And I listen to the sound, and I pretty much hear immediately what I want to do with that. So I use the work of great sound designers to inspire my own work. In terms of like waking up with melodies in your head, sometimes I do have that, or sometimes I'm just doing something, washing the dishes or doing something at home, and something sort of pops up, and then I'm like grabbing my phone and audio recording the melody, and then I give as much context as possible, because sometimes if you don't put like the chord, if you don't write down the chord progression that you would have behind the melody, and especially it's important to count in time, because obviously then you don't know when the melody begins. I have a kind of a folder of that kind of stuff, which I just dump stuff in there for the most part. But yeah, I mean, right now it's mostly just gathering beautiful sounds, and then from there I sort of immediately see where I want to go with it, and that's for the most part how I get inspired. But it's very different. Like for Breachway, which I'm doing now, it's the music is very there's a lot of synths, but most of it is very rhythm and texture based. Like if I were to describe that soundtrack, it's like rhythm meeting synth texture. So I couldn't even write that music without the sounds. Like it's I couldn't separate the two. They are so like interlocked. So for that, I just need to spend a lot of time like finding interesting sounds and then processing them further, tweaking them. Because when I hear even the tiniest detail that I like, I sort of hone in on that, and then I push everything else away and I tweak it, and then I'm off. So that's for the most part how I do it.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a Finnish thing, because I know composer who also does the same thing, Petri Alanko he does it for Remedy, Alan Wake and Control. So I spoke to Petri and he told me that he spends a lot of time just layering the sound effects, the different sounds that inspire him to get to the atmosphere, and it's not even using instruments at first, just sound designing the song. So he is really about how the song, what emotional impact is song going to have. And I haven't tried yet. I always start with an instrument. I rarely use sound effects to layer them and start a song. I use this for interesting thing. So besides sound design and music, I also do trailers here in Croteam. And sometimes I edit, me and a colleague of mine, we do the rough trailer editing before there is any picture. It's just the text. Here comes a shot, top-down shot, gameplay shot, and it's all synced to the beat. And this is where I actually do sound design in advance. I try to envision what is going on the screen, what's happening. I try to do all these Brahms, whooshes, transitions, risers, hits, stuff like that in advance before there is any video captured at all. And I layer this with music track. I pick up some of the voice lines from the game, try to create an interesting narration that will follow that video. And I send this off to my guys, and usually we take it from there. They said, oh, this is beautiful first draft. Let's think of what scenes can we add to this, and maybe let's change this voiceover to tell something different. And it sparks creative exchange of ideas. And even if we go to the outside company to do trailers for us, now if we don't do it in-house, I'm usually being asked to create this sound design / music track with certain rhythm and beats, which will be exactly a minute or a minute and a half, depends on how long we want trailer to be long. And that's not occasionally, most of the time it ends up being 80% of the job. So then perhaps the studio or us, we change some scenes, so I have to go back and create some whooshes on different places. But it's 80% of the job is done within 2 or 3 hours that I take to create a black video with text and cuts and stuff like that. So that's the only time I do sound design prior to adding any music. But I'm definitely, as you are going to try sending demo from Ichio in autumn, I'm going to try using the layering first, some sound, just to get the atmosphere of the track. I think this is really useful advice.
Yeah, and to be clear, because sound design as a definition, I don't start with like typically like non-pitched individual sounds. Like these are definitely like they are synth presets, but by sound design I just mean that the nature of the actual sound, the sound of the synth, how it was.
You think sound presets, more of the term of presets that you find inspiring
Yeah,
then
yeah, but it's like for me, composition is as much about sound as it is about the notes underneath it, and that's kind of like
absolutely.
Because I sort of started as more of like a pure. I thought about music as sort of like a purebred composer. Like I just thought about the chords, the melodies, and then I started recording my own stuff, and I realized, wow, this doesn't come across at all the way that I wanted to. And then I realized, okay, it sounds shit. Like the composition itself is pretty solid, but what is this sound thing? Like, why does it sound good versus why does it sound bad? And then I got more and more into, understanding mixing and sound, audio theory overall, and how things are tweaked and etc. And then sort of the sound element of it came closer to the composition. And today they are, for me, like pretty much inseparable. I would not write music without sound. But again, this very much depends on the type of music that I'm doing. Like if I was to do more like orchestral classical stuff, or even like folk, epic, medieval style, then I would probably start with a piano. Like it depends very much on what I'm working on, because in that case, for example, I know the sound of an orchestra. It's easy for me to orchestrate for an orchestra, so I don't need to exactly start with it, depending on if it's sort of more sort of general high fantasy style versus something more textural or specific. It would very much depend. Most of my music I've started writing with a piano, but the more I get into sound and the more specific the project is in terms of its texture, the sound texture, then I sort of switch gears. And the soundtrack that I'm doing now is very, very different, because I just started by going through different synth sounds, and I was searching for something that to me visually linked to the look of the game. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, okay, this works, and it's about rhythm, it's about texture, and then just try and pursue that. But it would be impossible for me to write without the sound. So it kind of has to start with the right sounds.
Are you trying to, okay, maybe that's a harsh word, reinvent the wheel? Or when you're doing a game, do you use temp music from other games, other movies, just to layer it below the gameplay, just to see if this style of music works? Because this is something I found very useful, using the temp track, just trying to nail down the specific style, even if I'm going to enhance it or whatever I'm going to do with it later, just to have it at least the song with the same instrumentation and the same atmosphere, to put it beneath to see if it works. It sounds to me, and it's turned out to be much quicker when trying new stuff. When you're at the very beginning of a project and you need to determine what you are going to do, I found using temp tracks very, very useful. I just don't want to send these temp tracks because people get stuck to them. They get emotionally attached, and then you have to beat the temp track. And if you've put something from John Williams, good luck with beating him. So
yeah, that would definitely be a very tough thing to kind of try and get passed on later, because there is actually one project that I'm trying to get, and we're in the talks of seeing if I can do it. And they've been using some pre-existing music, like library music, but sort of made for game use, I guess. And it's pretty solid. I think the best part of it is the sound of it. Again, they use really good sounds and it fits the game, but the compositions themselves are not nearly as good as I think they could be. And in this case, I'm very aware that first of all, the tracks work, and they've had those tracks for a long time. So it's a very difficult bar to, go over. But yeah, I mean, the more people spend time with them, the more it becomes familiar, and then the familiarization effect, comes into play, and it's very difficult for them to see anything beyond it. So you really do need to deliver highly, above the bar. You can't just do equal to, because then they're like, well, why don't I just keep this one, which by the way costs less, and kind of already like it. The beta alpha and beta players are already familiar with it and they like it. So you really have to like make the original music seem really like subpar compared to yours. So
I mean,
I don't
problem
know.
with library music is that everyone can use it. So that's one of the main reasons I found game developers don't like it so much, because it can end up in your game and 50 other games.
Yeah, that's one of the. I gave him a bunch of different reasons why he shouldn't do that. I tried to be as transparent about it, like laying the upsides and downsides, because obviously I want to write the music for it because it's an awesome game, and it's exactly one of the type of games that I also want to write for. So I just try and lay it out as objectively as I can. But that's one of the big things, because also people who love the game, they want to buy the soundtrack, and then you're just going to tell them, well, it's library music, and that also has some branding implications, etc. But I mean,
not to mention you can't change anything in library music. I mean, very rarely they deliver stems which you can remix. So it's
and also the further you go into a project, let's say you need a new track for something new, now you need to find something that fits everything else that you already have in there. So it's a bit of a nightmare. So I think he understands it from that aspect as well. Now it's only about delivering the quality, which is certainly a challenge, but we'll see how it turns out. But what you said about the not sending over anything that they can, get used to, that's a good idea. But I guess answering your question, I don't use that approach. When I see a game, I know pretty much instantly what I want to do for it. That's not to say it's going to be a perfect vision, but I have a general idea of what I would do with it. So I don't struggle with inspiration. Is one of my, that's one of the things I don't really struggle with. And again, that's not the same thing as, coming up with the best quality. Obviously, the more I work on it, it's going to change. It's going to shape itself, and it's hopefully going to improve. But I don't, to me, every single piece of music that I've ever heard sort of gets lodged in here. And I have this library in my head at all given times. And when I listen to something or see a piece of art or a video game or a movie, I'm sort of superimposing it into everything. I don't know if this makes any sense, but
so it sounds to me like you can recognize copycats very quickly.
Yes. And it's very common that I hear a piece and I go like, oh, that melody line or that this and that is from this track, or it's very similar. Even if it's not like a copycat thing, I could say, oh, that melody is from this song. And they're like, really? And then I show them and they're like, oh yeah, that's true. Or I hear a sound and I know that sound evokes a sense of this track. And that's why you feel this and that, because of you listen to this. And so that kind of stuff has been very immediate for me. So using temp music would feel like a additional step for me. I guess the closest thing I have to that is just reference tracks, but I use that more for mixing purposes. That's something I absolutely do need, because I do lose perspective on mixes unless I have reference tracks. But
I also reference my go-to mixes. It's a must if you want to deliver the production quality that is required today. It's impossible, not to reference your mix with somebody else's mix. It's just can't do it that way. But when it comes to master, I master songs myself. So one of the process that I also wanted to ask you, which is very interesting for me, when you compose, you are using DAW. For me, it's Cubase or Nuendo. They're basically the same. I don't know what you use.
I'm on Studio One right now.
Studio One, beautiful. Yeah. So when I do it, likewise, like you said, the sound is a big part of the music. The sound presets and the sound of the instruments. And what I tend to do is I tend to do final mix while I'm composing. I'm always shifting things, doing the equalization. I'm not waiting for the song to be finished, like all the notes are now inputted, and then I render this, and then I go to do separate project with mixing and EQs. No, I always do it at the same time as I'm composing, because I found out by making certain space with instruments through EQ, or putting mid-side differences in EQ, or just panning instruments around, it helps the creativity. It helps me make better track. So I don't leave mixing for the last part. I mix and I compose at the same time. The only thing I do at the end is mastering, but this mastering is mostly done when I'm composing a soundtrack, when I'm trying to assemble songs. Then, of course, they are all created through a very long period of time. They do not sound similar. The levels are not similar. And at that point, I do some mastering, but I also don't do much, because once I'm finished with the song, with the mixing process, and I get it to the levels I wanted, and I think it's ready for the game, I found out when I'm assembling a soundtrack, there are not much things to do with the song. It's probably getting the levels a bit hotter, making bass, mid, high frequencies all work together when you listen song by song by song by song. So that's my approach. So I always ask composers, how do you do it? Do you separate composing, mixing, mastering, or do you do it all at once like me?
I'm very similar to you. Most of it happens as I'm doing it, and again, like it's almost like the mixing process has, in a way, like you said, when you do an EQ, when you do a bit of tweaking, it can reveal certain different ideas and opportunities to you. So it's almost inseparable for me as a part of the composition. Again, like it's all melding into this one process. I will say that we have a lot of new great tools today. Like I really enjoy the Sonible EQ4 system, and things like OX Sound Bloom is really cool. So some of these and some of those processors, like Track Spacer is a pretty cool one from Waves Factory. So those require some kind of active audio input. So I can't really render them at the same time. So what I try and do is basically I do all the processing that stays on the track. So if I render the track into audio, then it obviously stays on that track. But I do have this sort of two-phase approach where I have all the individual processing on the track that doesn't play with any other track in any way, and I render all of those into audio, and then I do this web of basically plugins that talk with each other because they require some kind of active audio input. So those would be like a Sonible EQ4, Track Spacer by Waves Factory. Anything that basically talks with one another, so I can adjust certain balances very, very quickly that way. So
I assume this is like tonal balance control from Isotope, which also has the input plugin on tracks and summarizes.
Yeah, it's kind of similar. I do, some of those can be a bit too aggressive sounding to me. You can also be very subtle with them, so that's not an issue. Sonible EQ4 is a bit better because it's like, well, I shouldn't say better, but it's sort of more subtle and general, because for the most part, you can make it do a bunch of things, but for the most part, it's like more like a normal EQ. So it's listening to some, the other instrument that you're inputting into it, and then you can basically, bring everything into one window. So I do basically the Sonible EQing in sections of the track. So everything that's in the verse will be in this sort of Sonible mix window. So in there, I can easily and very quickly control some of the balances in mid or low or high frequencies. So it's kind of an additional step that brings a bit more space, bring a bit more polish and balance to the whole thing. but that's basically like it breaks down into two different components. For the most part, I mix as I compose, and then once I go into the kind of proper mix phase, that's where I just polish and balance the frequency ranges with one another and bring a bit of sheen and polish, and then that just feeds into my master bus, which will be my mastering process as well. So that's pretty much
you feed it into master bus. And then is it all in the same project, or do you separate the mastering part?
I do separate it.
You separate it. Okay.
Yeah, for the most part, so that you can compare all the tracks in the album in one session. So Studio One has like a different it's like a different type of a session that you can open up for mastering, so you can do faster comparisons between tracks. You can obviously do it normally in a normal DAW session as well, but yeah, and usually I could do it in the same session where the mix is, but it's just like a matter of processing power for the most part. I have a pretty beefy computer, but it's still, I don't know. I think plugins are just getting hungrier every year, so it can get pretty intensive.
I've built 12 terabytes of the fastest NVMe storage put in the right configuration. So it's amazingly fast, yet still plugins manage to load slowly and clog it. And it's 12900K Intel here, 128 gigs of RAM, and still it gets so hungry. And I think whenever we buy a new computer, we go have this beautiful, now I can work fast. They come up with new plugins that are just, they kill it again.
Yeah. Now that we're sort of on the topic of technology just a bit, I thought, because you've seen the whole development from like the Porta Studios and the early digital tech into today, is there something on the tech front, like technology-wise, that you are really excited about now? Or is there like a piece of gear or plugin or anything that, you've bumped into that you thought is pretty cool right now?
Well, it's kind of hard to find something that's going to be genre redefining these days. If you look at the new synths or analog gear that's coming out, it's mostly recreation of the old hardware, where people have these nostalgic feelings about old hardware being better. And there are these analog purists that for every new recreation of Jupiter or ARP or something, the old one was much better, this barely makes it. And
talking about that instead of making music.
That's a lot of people buy a lot of equipment, and I get a call from a friend and he says, you have to listen to this and listen how it sounds. I said, okay, play me some music. What music? But the music that you made with these sounds. I know I'm just playing with the sounds, but play me music. I didn't record anything. How long you have it? 1 year. Thank you. So yeah. You heard that as well. I can see you can relate to that.
Yeah. You go on a Reddit page or a forum, and it's like, is this piece of gear better than this and that? And it's like, okay, yeah, exactly what you said. Like, when's the last time you wrote anything with this? You paid 10 grand for this vintage synth. What are you doing with it? And by the way, I think it's okay if you just want to stay at home with it and masturbate on it or whatever you do, which is like, it's everybody can do what they want to do with their time and money. But it's like, probably many of those people actually want to make music, but they just don't quite get to it. So yeah, it's an important thing for a lot of people to realize.
It's also an excuse. If you buy new gear, I need to patch it in, I need to learn how to work. I'll work later when I finish all those things, adding this to my setup and connecting it and making it the best. And I need to design my own sound patches because using presets is cheating. So there are a lot of excuses not to make music. I don't know. The latest gear that actually excited me was, don't know if you heard about it, Linstrument. It's like instrument with an L, and it was made by Roger Lind. And if you
Yeah.
look at the web, it's a MIDI controller
Oh yeah,
which
this one. Yeah.
allows you these polyphonic MPE expressions, and it can be played. The layout is a bit similar to the guitar, and the strings and how frets and strings work at the guitar. So it was quite interesting for me to play because you can play several notes at the same time. You can use all MPE functions like vibrato with your fingers, sliding, bending. And if the software counterpart supports it, you can have quite an expressive sounding instrument under your fingers. So yeah, look later at YouTube. There are people that use, like, even famous ones like the Dream Theater keyboard player Jordan Rudess, that uses the instrument, and he can play amazingly with it. So this is the instrument that kind of took me out of my comfort zone, allowed me to express myself differently. I used it for Talos too. Then I would suggest, if not buying, just take a look what it can do. Maybe it can change the way you think about playing sounds. And also there are instruments I don't own, but I would love, like Rolly Seaboard and Osmose, all these instruments that are derived perhaps from pianos and workstations, but have this capability where your finger can do much more than press the key, when you can swirl it, slide it, glide it, dabble with it. When I play piano, I sometimes do these small articulations where I want to do vibrato, like I do this on guitar. This is natural. When you play guitar, if you just move your hand and tremolo a bit. And so I do this on piano, and I now I wonder why I don't have Rolly or something that actually supports this and that will make my sound do this vibrato. And
I'm trying so hard not to interrupt you, because like if I was to mention one thing, and I like the Osmose more than the other ones, like that. If you watch, like I do demos of sample libraries and virtual instruments on my YouTube, and I don't have that kind. I have a dope for PK88 here, which is a really good keyboard. Yeah, but it doesn't have aftertouch. It doesn't have any of these like these qualities. But if you look at me play, I do, like, I play and that you see me wiggle my finger in relation. It's just a thing that I do naturally through the emotion. So when I saw Osmose, especially because it's the Seaboard, the Rolly is a bit. No, I mean, it's like I do like keys. Like I do feel like I want that mechanical feel. I've actually never tried the Rolly, so I shouldn't say either way. But the Osmose seems to like click very well with me, because I see them do the things that I already do on my keyboard that doesn't respond to those behaviors. But that's I would actually go with that myself if I was to answer that question. But it would be interesting to see how much it actually enhances the process.
I think one of these days I'm going to purchase Osmose. I'm going to try. I'm using Arturia, and they have beautiful, beautiful MIDI controllers. And this is Keylab 88. I love it. It works flawlessly. I have few more, which I used, like Nectar 88. Then I had Icon. They're all in my storage space, but I found this Arturia one really the best in terms of build quality, keys, and price in the end, because it's a really cheap keyboard, but really, really nice. Osmose is a much bigger investment, but exactly what you said, the look and feel of the classic keys, but with this enhanced ability for things we are already doing on these keyboards, non-consciously, perhaps. I think it's going to be a great addition. I would love to have it in 88 key version, because I use this for switching, and when playing piano, I don't find 5 octaves enough. So
Yeah.
I'd love to have it at 88 keys. So whenever Osmose 88 comes out, I don't think they have it on market with.
I don't think I saw anything like that. I'm sure they'll build you a custom one for sure. Just
Yes, I can solve my kidney and then I can have a custom one. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't see. They seem to have. Okay, so it's pretty hard. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4. That's okay. That's 4 octaves. Yeah, something.
I think it's 4 octaves. They're not even 5.
Yeah.
So for a keyboard, that would be this specific keyboard. If I have a place to put it, but I also keep everything on my desk what I use. So for some sort of specific keyboard that would sit aside, I think this one for 4 octaves would be just fine. But for something that's always that I use 100% of the time when composing, it needs to be 88 for me. It's where I'm most comfortable at.
Yeah, and it's a surprising amount of time because, like, as a composer, especially if you're working with an orchestra, you want to go to the high and low register really, really fast. Like, if I need to change the octave on the keyboard, that seems like such a small step, but it's a pretty big step. When you're like, if I write for an orchestra, it's super fast. So I'm going from strings to brass to this and that. So I need to, go to those octaves very, very fast.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, yeah. I hope this one seems to have 49 keys. So yeah, hopefully they can go up.
We can wait.
Wait. Maybe if we buy one and I buy one, we can combine them into one, and then
98 keys. That's the new one.
yeah. Then I'll just fly to Croatia and spend the money on the tickets. I quickly wanted to touch on something which I call kind of retainment theory, which is basically that creatives manage to retain their interest and hunger and spirit towards creativity, going from their childhood into their adulthood. Because I think there's a lot of people who their creativity gets what's the word, kind of smoked out, or somebody puts out the flame, whether it's like parenting or
extinguish.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. So especially in your case, because you mentioned the war and you had to grow up in that kind of environment, I can easily imagine that for some people it would be like an environment that puts survival at first, and it can be an environment that doesn't support creativity. So how do you think you manage to retain the creativity going into your adulthood, and especially in considering the situation in your country?
Well, the war, everything was leading to that war, actually. Now that you look at the history and how things were developing here, I think we all knew this would happen. We didn't just expect it to be on such big scale. Some of our cities in the east part, neighboring Serbia, were completely destroyed. So it was hard times, and not just when the war ended, also years later, rebuilding everything, trying to make it all work back, being normal. But I believe I was a teenager in that period. So when the war ended, I was 18 years old. And when you're a teenager, I think you can survive anything. You can, and there are other things that occupy you, like music, girls, going out. Being a teenager, it's just a period of time which you make friends. You have high school, you have learning, so not all of your focus was on what's happening in the country. And luckily our capital city, it we were under what I told you. We had to go in shelters. There were air raids, but it was not as devastating as some other parts of Croatia, which were really, really hit hard. And so from my personal experience, I don't think the situation in our country impacted my creativity or my future artistic development. But I've been through some stuff which I don't think kids should go through. So maybe I'm just a bit more, all of us Croats, maybe we are a bit more serious people, a bit more. We also maybe appreciate life a bit more, at least the generation that I grew up with. And I don't know, kids today, it's all about cell phone. It's all about some sort of quick and fast entertainment. They're like technological junkies, even from toddler age to the university. Young people today, they all spend most of the time on the cell phones and television, and I think that's the real creativity killer. The situation where we were 30 something years ago, it didn't kill any creativity. It actually limited us, which inspires you when we open this conversation with limitations and restrictions. And when you have this, you have to find new ways of doing something. And that's what sparks creativity. Today, you're given everything on a platter. You want some quick fun, some adrenaline rush, you just open the latest game there is. It's full of adrenaline, it's satisfying, you play it. You're not challenged to do anything else. Why would you do something? Why would you go and play with Lego sets when you have something that looks amazing on your cell phone? So I think the problem with creativity is problem of today, not problem of yesterday or tomorrow. It's something we need to address today, and we need to find a way to balance lives, to balance our lives in comparison with this digital technology that we're being offered. And there are advances there is AI coming. A lot of people are like, oh no, Terminators are going to kill us. The others are embracing it as a tool. Okay, I don't need to spend 1 hour on the internet searching for the cheapest pool that I can buy. I can just send the command and it's going to search everything for me. It's all a matter of perspective and a matter of balance. If you spend days just talking to the AI and not going out in the real world, socializing yourself, you're going to alienate yourself from the people, and you're going to alienate yourself from your creativity, because solving problems is what we are meant to do. Humanity, we were born naked. We are born without anything. We invented our own tools, we tamed fire. I don't know, I just watched, did you watch Oppenheimer as a movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so the thing, it's historical movie, but looking at those minds that were gathered at the time, it's like this geniuses. I don't see this today happening. It's, oh no, I just want to slide my phone, play my phone. I don't see this happening today. People gathering the day at one place, brainstorming, giving each other ideas, trying to find something. It's like thing of the past. It was, those people had nothing. They had to work hard to do something in the life, to learn. Today you can learn. You just subscribe to 10 YouTube channels. If you have time, you can learn everything. But then you need to apply it, and then you need to find some time to process everything you've learned, to hone your skills, to improve them, and you get distracted quite easily. So all my ramble about this digital technologies is that it can be useful if you can balance it, like probably everything in your life. And yeah, I don't think things were things were hard back then during this war in Croatia, but things are even harder now for me, from my perspective, looking at my two kids. It's hard, to move them away from cell phones and tablets, and to get them to go out and play with ball or just use ordinary toys. I'm happy to say that me and my wife, we are managing it, and I think we are doing a good parenting. We can do better. Well, you're gonna see in a few years when they pick up the phone. So,
Yeah, we could actually, because I did want to ask you about kind of work-life balance, is if that's even a thing that you conceptualize like that. But is being a parent, being a father, is that has that been the hardest thing to balance in relation to your creative work, or is it something else? And how are you managing that, and how do you keep those things in balance?
I mean, there is a saying, somebody said it, I read it a few days ago and I heard it decades ago. If you do something you like, you're not working a day in your life. Something like that. So I've been loving this, doing music, creating music, composing, playing. And yes, sometimes it feels like work, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we have deadlines, so you have to stay in the studio longer time just to wrap up everything on time. Sometimes you have plenty of time, so you can go out and have a stroll during beautiful sunny day in the middle of work hours. No one is going to ask you anything, just keeping up with refreshing my batteries. And on the other hand, being a parent, being a husband, having a family of my own, of course, there is always this part of your brain that's thinking you need to provide. You need to take care of your family. You need to make sure your kids don't screw it up somewhere along the way. So there's a lot of parent monitoring happening. You need to also you need to work on your relationship with your partner, your husband, your wife. You need to invest in that. People take this once they're married, they take it for granted. But you need to work on this. Like you need to work on passing all your knowledge and your values to your kids. You need to work on having the best partnership you can with your partner. You need to work on being the best you can at your job. Please try to help other people. This is one of the things I try to help. Anyone who asks me, send me an email. I try to reply. If they ask for advice, I send that advice. If they ask for something else, I try to help them out. So just try to be the best version of yourself. And when you're doing this, you don't have to actively think about work-life balance. You're actually doing it. You're just trying to be the best parent, the best partner, the best composer. It's exhausting. It can take time. We are just humans. We are imperfect. We get tired. We get anxious. We get angry. We get pissed. There are a gazillion of things happening. But if you're conscious, like you are conscious when you say, I see myself procrastinating. So you mentioned that you're consciously trying to do something that would take you out of that loop of procrastination and to make you feel useful. And I'm also trying to be all the time self-aware, whatever I do in life, just to be self-aware that I'm doing the things the best I can, to the best of my values. And all of us, we have some certain values in life. It's the upbringing. Some of it is the social culture where we are growing up. Kind of lost the point here, but I think I said it. I said it already. So if you keep doing the best you can in all aspects of your life, you will not have to think about work-life balance at all. That's how I would sum it up.
Yeah.
Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but
No, I absolutely do, and it's I don't even really like the term work-life balance, and I'll probably stop using it on this podcast because I think work is a part of life. It's all life, like the work,
yes,
and like you said, like work is, as a definition, it's like putting effort into something. So, and in a term, like as a term, it's not even very. It's not something I use very often. Like I'm writing music, or I'm working on the podcast, or I'm working on my, relationship with my kid, or my better half, or my friend, or whatever. It's I don't like, people have this idea that, okay, there's work and it's in a box, and I go and do that, and then I step outside and I need to tolerate the rest of my life, pretty much. Not that they don't. Obviously, many people need to tolerate their work as well, but it's like they're not separate. They're part of this big experience called life. And it's not to say you shouldn't balance the different aspects of your life, but it's a weird mindset, the way people typically think about work, period. Like work is something I don't want to do, it's something I have to do, and I tolerate doing it as little as I possibly have to. And you get X amount of money so you can buy stuff that distracts you from how much you hate your work. And that's a pretty bad thing, because if you're spending 8-9 hours a day doing something you don't want to do, that's probably not the best balance of that component in your life. But yeah, I mean, I do understand what you mean, and agree with it.
So my question to you: if you had $20 million on your account, so you're settled for life, your kids are settled for life, would you do this job? Or would you do something completely different?
100%. I would do exactly what I do now. I just wouldn't be, struggling month to month, depending on the time of the year. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I just try and make my life include as many of the things that I want to be spending this life on, period. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And everything that I'm doing is that, that's not to say I won't have to do things that are difficult and that I don't want to do at this time. Because even if you want to write music, that doesn't mean every single second of it is going to be pleasant or easy. And a lot of the time it is very hard. Like writing music is probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. Like, and that's a weird thing to say, because I love every second of it, but it can be so difficult at times. Like, you're trying to put it together, and you need to use everything that you have. You need to use your intellect. You need to use your emotional side of it. Like, you need to allow that to flow. You need to be present. You need to be skills. Yes, you need skills. You need to be technical about it. And that's why I love it, because it's like a microcosm of life at its fullest. And then you can extend that to also the entrepreneurial aspect, because as a musician, you're going to make music and then you're going to put it out into the world. So it's like it's the hardest thing that I know how to do, because even if you have, let's say, like a hard physical job, that can be physically very hard, but maybe doesn't require any brain power from you. You don't need to be like emotionally present. You don't necessarily need to be super focused. You don't need to be intellectually engaged. But music, of course, this fluctuates, but at its sort of peak, it requires absolutely everything from you. And it requires all of those things to be in balance. And that's why when you're writing music and everything's going really well, you feel like, at least I feel like I'm like one with the universe. It's such a beautiful, transcendent experience. You're just like, I can't believe I'm existing in this mode right now, because it feels so divine, for the lack of a better word. So, that's a difficult state to achieve. This is why a lot of people, this is what a lot of people meditate years for, to achieve this kind of a state. And
it happens to you during composing or when you're listening to the end piece?
during composition, especially when because I feel like music for me, when I'm composing, it's more like a discovery. I'm not so convinced it's so much about, I'm kind of moving away from this creation aspect. It depends on what you mean by the word, because it's not self-evident. But I feel like when I'm writing music, I'm discovering the world that music depicts. So for me, it's like, wow, like it's the feeling like if you travel to a different country and you see like the pyramids for the first time, or you see the beautiful city of, I don't know, Paris or Tokyo, and you're like, wow, this is amazing to be here. Like it's the same kind of feeling, but just even more when I get to write a piece, but then I'm discovering it, and then it's kind of unfolding in front of me, and I'm sort of just taken by it completely. You feel like you're discovering a different world.
That's a beautiful comparison. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's different. Just sorry for interrupting. But
No.
For me, it's like a birth, giving birth. Making a song. As you said, it's so hard. You have to invest yourself, all your skills, technical, emotional. You have to give it 110%. But once it's out, if I get goosebumps while I'm listening to the song, this is where I feel the one with the cosmos, not during the process. So we are here on the same page, but different aspects of composing excite us.
In a way, probably not, because what the thing for me is like, once I get to that moment when it's the floodgates open, it's in that moment, even if the song isn't ready, I see the finished song. I see it in my mind's eye, in my, with my third eye. I see the finalized product in that second. I don't need to like write it. I don't need to actually finish it in reality, because I like this kind of links to I'm very sort of strong with the vision. Like if I see things very quickly once I get to the root of it. So I could be composing a piece, and then I get to a line or melody line or a chord, and then I go like, okay, I know where this is going. And it's in that second that I hear and see the final piece. So in a way, it's probably very similar to you in that sense, because for me, there's no difference. In my mind, it already exists because I know where the song is going to go.
That's amazing. Yeah, actually, we are bald, we have beards, and we think very much alike. I'd shake your hand, but we are 1,000 kilometers apart. But
maybe we think alike because we are bald and we have beards.
Yeah,
maybe that's the secret.
That's the connection. So for everyone who wants to be a successful composer, shave your head, grow some beard.
Imagine how good Zimmer would be if he grew a beard.
Oh my God!
Because now he only has half the power.
Yes.
Well, I guess he's not bald, so
he would be like us.
Does he? Yeah, I think he has hair. I'm sorry.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's what awaits us in 20 years.
Yeah. Maybe he's spiritually.
I don't know. I do have hair, but I shave it. I don't know about you, but I shave my head because it's much more cooler, and I don't have to. I can wash it every day.
Yeah. I have some hair there. There's a bit of less of it in certain parts, but yeah. I did want to touch on, because in the very beginning you talked about like lifting weights or training, and that's one of the passions of mine as well. What do you do training wise? Like, do you do compound like weightlifting, barbell stuff, and is that something, or tell what it is, and is that something you've always done, or is it something you discovered?
No, I was actually I was fat all my life. I've been fat for the past 40 something years, and it actually peaked during COVID. I was stuck here. I was alone in the studio because people were working from home. I was here alone with a friend of mine. We both love to eat, So we had a game to finish, and it was like steak day every day, and pizza and burgers, stuff like that. So we gained some weight, and we finished the project. We looked at ourselves, and it was, dude, this can't go on. And so he started weightlifting, and a week later I joined him. So we made a program, and we started following it religiously. We even installed MyFitnessPal and weighted every piece of food that we ate. So it was like taking the barcode and entering how many grams of. And then we both lost around 30 kilos. And all this time we were going to the gym. At my age, going to the gym and pushing yourself to the limits results in some, how can I say, it's not fractures, but, some strained tendons and some pain that actually makes you rethink about your age and the weights you're pushing. And then you go step back and said, okay, I can do it with lesser weights. So I changed my training routine. It was 4 times in gym. Now it's 2 times per week doing core training for the abdominal muscles and abductors and stability, and 2 times a week doing weightlifting, which I'm now doing with dumbbells instead of barbells because they don't limit the motion. So even if I'm having some tendon or muscle pain, I can always shift the dumbbell a bit so it doesn't hurt. And I do not chase weights anymore. And when I say chase, I don't go for every training needs to be higher, heavier. I just keep doing the same thing. The biggest takeout here is if you decide you're going to work out, and you should, because you're not getting any younger and your body will be thankful if you exercise, you need to show up. That's half of the work is done. Just show up. If I go and I enter the gym, I'm going to do the training. But if I sit outside in a car, oh my God, I don't have a will or power. But if I just cross that door and enter, I'll do the training. Whatever the training is, it's not a rock star training every time. It can be a lousy training, but it's still training. It's half an hour or 1 hour spent doing good things for your body, for your health. And I think everyone should do this. Just at least walk. Take every smartphone now has this measuring system which you can use to measure your exercise. So I found that walking 6 kilometers per hour, it won't inflict any problems to my joints, hips. I won't get hurt, and I'll still lose some weight, and I'll feel exercised and refreshed in the end. So that's a big part of my new life ever since 3 years ago. Keeping myself in shape, and of course, it's the other part is the healthy eating habits. I still working on this. It's going to be a lifelong fight. Trying to keep away from beer and burgers and switching it to the vegetables and just grilled meat, something we consider healthy at this moment. But it's doable. If you do it long enough, it becomes a muscle memory. You just know which foods to pick, how to cook them, what to do. I think, investing in yourself right now, if you're 20 years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, doesn't matter. Investing in yourself right now is the best thing you can do for your future. Huh?
Yeah.
What smart words.
Yeah. No, and it's like, even if creativity, even if music is your priority, the healthier you are, unless something specific happens, the longer you will live, and also the quality of those years will be better. So, if you really love creativity, then it's a good idea to invest some in your physical health so that you can do more of it, during your life.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And it's like you said, the consistency is the most important thing. Like people get so caught up in intensity over just quantity, and it's like they want to go to the gym and go hard every single time, not realizing that you're actually doing more by going there more often and just doing less, so you don't burn out and you can maintain the effort.
That's the mistake I learned the hard way. So I wasn't able to lift any weights with my shoulders because I hurt them. Now I'm much smarter. I'm also 2 or 3 years older. Also it's constant training comes the experience. You learn things. You can always I hired a trainer to show me some of the exercises that I was perhaps doing wrong, so not to hurt myself in the future. So he corrected me, the posture, the weights, how you should put your hands, how you should contract your muscles, when to breathe. It's very important to breathe during weightlifting. So every small investment you do now, yes, you will have a better future. You will have the quality of your life, exactly as you said. It's going to improve, and it's definitely something people need to pay attention right now.
Yeah. And so when you're young, you don't realize that this isn't going to last forever.
I absolutely agree. I was eating like crazy when young. I mean, I've did some sports, mostly martial arts. I love those. So I went to 3, 4,
nice. Which ones?
5 different: Nambudo, Taekwondo, Karate, Judo. So I have some sort of orange, green belt in every one of these. But, being overweight all my life didn't help with mobility and reflexes. And so, yes, I feel much better now. And I don't intend to go back to the old ways anytime soon.
Yeah. Cool. Going into this would probably be the third last question. I just wanted to touch on what would be like, what's next in store for you? And you can basically take this any direction you want. You don't obviously have to talk about projects, or maybe you can't even talk about them. But like, is there something that comes to mind when I ask that? Like, is there creatively something in store for you? Is there any kind of specific projects that you're hoping to come across, or
no? I'm actually I'm excited about at Croteam. So we are known for the Talos Principle franchise and for the Serious Sam franchise, and we've been running those two for the past 20. If it was released in 2001, for the past 23 years, I've been going with one of these two games. But we have some new ideas finally, about a new kind of game, which I personally very much like. It's kind of a gameplay style that I played, and it's very interesting, and especially the way we are going to design this, the art style and the music style should be very, very interesting. Something I haven't done before, but still incorporated those familiar elements that my music is known for, like mixing rock and orchestral. It's going to be even more modern this time, I hope. We are also, as mentioned, since this podcast is going to be released after mid-June, the DLC for the Talos 2 will be out, and it consists of 3 new stories, which help fill some gaps that were perhaps left from Talos 2. And these are 3 beautiful stories, and each one of these DLC has different difficulty. We have one with so crazy puzzles that I don't know how people are going to solve them. Maybe they're not. I barely finished that one. There's another one with different mechanics that we combine from the existing ones, which require you to think differently. And I love how it looks and sounds. I think it's going to be a great addition to the original game. So you might want to wait for this to come out to play the original Talos 2 and then just jump into these DLCs. So yeah, plenty of things to be excited. And I don't know, personally, I think there are many games ahead of Croteam and ahead of me. I don't plan to retire anytime soon, and I plan to make many more games. And if you ask me, perhaps not related to gaming, or not related to gaming, I would love to release metal album, and I would love to sing on it, but I'm not such a good singer, so this would probably take some time to learn how to properly sing. I mean, I can sing and people say, oh, you're a great singer. I'm not. Yeah, but to make some proper metal album, it's something, my lifelong dream, for which I can't find time doing all the things I do. But that's basically it. It's not. I'm living a good life. I'm enjoying it. I love my family. I have a beautiful wife, beautiful kids, and I have great colleagues here. At company, and we're making fun games, enjoying it. So I'm enjoying the present, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Awesome. That's beautiful to hear. And unfortunately, it's not super common for people to say that. So it's really, really cool when you do actually hear someone say that.
It would be beautiful if everyone would say that.
Yes.
We would have the world peace that all models want.
Yeah. Second to last question. What is your definition of an artist?
I don't have it. I don't think. I respect artists, but I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself as a worker. This is a hobby that became my work, which I chose. And when I do, I compose music. I'm not artisting it. I'm working on it. So I consider myself a worker. Of course, there are so many artists in the world that do things I cannot imagine myself doing. From composing amazing lyrics like Nick Cave, Leonard Cohen, to playing guitar like a guitar god like Stevie Vai, and to the Hans Zimmer doing scores, and John Williams composing this orchestral stuff. These are like amazing, fantastic artists, but I try to stay humble. I do not try to compare myself to these talented individuals. So I just say, I'm a worker, I'm doing the work, but that work makes me happy, and it's fun, and I love doing it. And I do feel honored when people call me artist, and when they send me emails, and I receive emails from fans about my music and how it affected them, how they enjoy it. And thank you, each and every one of you people who took your time to write to me. It made my life much more happier. But their definition of artist, I don't know. Probably people who can do things that I cannot do ever in my life. Those would be the artists for me.
Yeah.
I know that there is this famous, what is it called? The black square, the painting. And it's considered art. It's just a black square on a white background, and it's an art, but I can do this. So for me, this is not art. Art is something that takes creativity, skill, and it takes it to such a level that you are wondering, how the hell did they do it? This is what I think art is.
Yeah.
What's your definition of it?
Oh, I was afraid someone is going to throw that back.
I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'm interested.
Well, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to touch on, because I'm sure there are people out there who think that about your work. And first of all, secondly, I guess it's a super healthy way to think about it the way you do. And of course, I think there are a lot more people out there who could do with less of thinking about how they are artists versus doing something about it. So I think we need more of your mentality than we do the other approach, where the identity sort of comes first and then the doing. when in reality you're probably shaped more by the doing, and then maybe the identity can change accordingly to that. But also I would add that I'm sure there are many people out there who listen to your work and think about, wow, how does he do that? And it can be difficult to see the things that are obvious in what you do yourself. Like, it's hard to appreciate the things that we take for granted, but then someone else walks in and then looks at what you do and says, wow, that's really impressive how you did that. And of course, we're always comparing ourselves to the John Williamses or Bachs or whomever is your favorite composer. Always looking at the highest pinnacle of what we appreciate in that area. So it's also very easy to lose yourself in that comparison, and understandably not wanting to put yourself in that same conversation. But but I like your view on that and your mindset on it. In terms of how I describe an artist, I would probably say, so I think there are many definitions depending on your perspective. Like you said, it really depends on what perspective you take. But I think I do like this idea that artists are basically they go into the unknown and they make sense of it in a way. They make sense of it and they bring it back into the world of the known in a way that is accessible to other people. So they basically expand the horizon of what we accept to be reality. I don't know if I explained that in the best possible way, but
I'm actually thinking of it. This is very profound, I must say.
And this is not my idea. This is from Jordan Peterson, who I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
But I mean, despite people can, he said a lot of things about a lot of topics, but I do invite people who are creatives to go and listen to his definition of what an artist is. I really like his, because it's like psychological, philosophical analysis. But I think he says artists are the agents they are the civilizing agents of society. So basically, because if you think about what art does, it makes you realize something new. It makes you see something new, something you didn't understand before. And in order to do that, you need to go into the realm of chaos, into the realm of the unknown. And artists go there and they see patterns that other people don't see. So for example, they see how people interact with one another, or they might see something that is wrong or right with the world, and they connect the dots and they put that discovery in a format that is accessible via a medium. So that could be a painting, that could be music, and it's in a form that I can listen to, I can look at, and I can realize something. Now that discovery. Sorry?
No, I said you can appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is what the art is, This is.
And it doesn't mean it's, every time like a massive, grandiose discovery. It can be a small thing as well. And even a small thing is very difficult to achieve. You don't have to do everything uniquely from the ground up, like discovering new genres or whatever. But sometimes it's a slight tweak that only you can do in the genre of metal, let's say, or you might have your inspirations, but you sort of pull them together to do this slight different perspective tweak on something, and you can add your tiny piece of something that improves the world in some sense through that. So that would probably be the first thing that I go to as a definition. But
I like this. Actually, I read this first book by Jordan Peterson, 10 Rules of Life. I don't know how it's translated. I had it in Croatian here, but something like that. So actually, I found it very useful when it comes to the parenting. Don't be ashamed of your kids, and the examples there and stuff like that really helped me to find a different way to talk to my kids, to make them listen to me more closely instead of just, oh yeah, sure, yeah. But yeah, his definition of artist is actually on point. Now you made me think about it, and I like it.
Yeah,
I'm going to read this book again.
Yeah, and I can see if I can find the video where he talks about it. It's like it's a lecture on some kind of a topic, but I think he pieces it together in a very unique way. It's a very philosophical way, of course, of looking at it. But that's
I think he's a great lecturer. He really can convey everything into words. I love listening to him. So
yeah, and he combines a lot of like Jungian things and what Nietzsche said about it, and a lot of other stuff. It's good stuff. But yeah, I mean, let's do the last question, and you can take this again whichever way you can take it into any direction you want. But if you could send a message onto everyone's smartphone lock screen, so it's basically you're going to send the message, it's going to pop up here. Everybody's going to have to look at it. They can't unlock their phone without seeing the message. Can be a picture, could be text, could be whatever you want to send, other than advertising your own music, which some people might want to do. You're sending that to the entire world, to everyone's smartphone. What are you going to send? Could it be a message? Hopefully not a dick pic or.
No. It's.
Although that would be pretty funny.
Dude, that would be pretty funny. Yeah. I don't know what I would say. I'm thinking about restrictions I have here. It's a small message. It needs to be displayed on a phone. Everyone needs to understand it. And it's supposed to cause some reaction.
I guess.
I'd probably just send the emoji with letter smile and the smiley emoji. And just you look at it and you smile for today. And that would be it. It's just if everyone is so gloom, and dark, and there is no laughter and joy in your life, it's hard to find the reason, to go on. But if your day is filled with laughter and joy and happiness, every day is a joy. So yeah, there's my message. Let me just grab a phone, smile. You need to put a smiley, overlaid on top of my phone. Yeah.
I'll do it in post. Yeah. No, I think we could definitely use a bit more of that. Everybody is. Yeah. I mean, like you said, the technology is kind of like it's a tool, but negativity is such a powerful force in the human psyche and in our biology that it's so easy to get wrapped up in nothing but the negativity. And this one once clicks, it once swipes and eyeballs, and negativity is going to grab that very quickly. So that's why I think a lot of people are as negative and stressed and anxious as they are. So equally so, we could focus on something a bit more positive, but that takes conscious effort today.
That takes effort. Yeah, that takes effort. Exactly.
And like you said, also takes mindfulness, being conscious of what you're doing.
Exactly. And self-aware of things that are happening, and what can you do to improve them, or just to make world better place. And yeah, it's hard to think it's from the standpoint of one person in the 8 billion people world, but I think everyone can give this small percentage, whatever, to make, if not your life, then the life of the others a bit better. Just people be nice to each other. That's, if we could all live by that, we would have a much better world to live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's end up with joy and happiness. Smile, people. Smile, Markus.
Yeah.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
We got at least 2 smiles.
We got at least 2 smiles. Somebody who is listening to this is smiling right now. These crazy bald guys are smiling. I can smile as well.
Yeah, you have our permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate you putting in. It's no small effort to take a slice out of your day.
Well,
and
it was faster than I thought it was. Just the conversation and the report. I love it. So if ever you come to Zagreb, please get in touch so you can visit me, and I'll show you the studio and the city. And
awesome. I will absolutely take that opportunity at some point. And same to you. If you ever visit Finland, I'm not in Helsinki, but I'm in a city pretty close. So, like 2-hour drive, but that's pretty close for us.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, even if you go into Helsinki, I can take the bus or drive over, and you're welcome to visit our wonderful country.
I love traveling through Europe, and Finland is the country I haven't been to yet. Actually, none of the northern countries. So I've been to Ireland and UK, but not counting islands. I need to go and visit whole north region of Europe at one point. So yeah, we might see each other sooner than you think.
Awesome.
We'll
Cool.
see. Yeah. And thank you for inviting me to podcast. I actually had fun, and I learned something from you, which is always, always useful thing, meet new friends and learn something from people, take the good stuff and apply it to your life. So yeah, thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.